Cast, HBO's unofficial The Last of Us recap podcast. This show, hosted each week by me, Jack, and Andrew,
Hello there.
will take a deeper look into the mega TV series event, The Last of Us. We'll break down, assess, compare, contrast, and have just a little bit of fun as we go. So grab yourself a cup of Joel's favorite blend, and let's get on with it. I did it.
It's the airing of grievances. It's right. I'm coming right out of the gate. The airing of grievances. Colleen, I see you. Caesar, I see you. These calls for
Mari.
longer episodes. Mari,
Mari, don't
I
you
see
forget
you.
my girl, Mari.
I see you.
Mhm.
Don't think that I haven't noticed. Okay.
They're
Go
all
to the
on
video.
my side.
Go to the video version. Look me in the eyes. Okay. Look me in the eyes right now. Please.
Encourage me.
Please. I have so much I need to get done. Please.
I know.
Please help me help you. Help me help you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. No, and that is why this episode is a day possibly too late because of just how busy the week is for both of us this time, actually.
Turns out we get hired to edit and record podcasts for other people too.
Mhm.
And so that turns out to be a whole thing, as they say.
Yeah.
But
Travel, time,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, the paid work has to come first, even if it's not the passionate work.
Hey,
So-
one allows you to bootstrap the other. So that's,
Exactly.
one hand washes the other, as it were.
Exactly. But thank you guys for being patient with us.
Yeah.
We're literally in the home stretch. This is
Yeah.
one of 2 episodes left in the season reviews, and then we'll have a couple bonus shows.
And
But
I think, isn't our next episode a live one?
no, our next episode won't be a live one, but we are doing a live broadcast on Monday, March 13th to announce the winner of our giveaway.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You don't have me up on your screen right now, but you keep
I do.
vamping. Oh, you do?
I do. I can see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, here we go. Andrew is going to show the Joel statue that y'all can win. So go over to our look. It's not even taken out of the
It's
plastic
literally
yet.
still in plastic wrap.
Yeah. Well, that one actually, technically speaking,
what are you doing, kid?
that one's
It's
mine.
me. It's me, Gerald. It's Gerald.
Gerald, get the fuck out of here, Gerald.
Hey.
Nobody gets that. If they're only watching the show, they don't get that.
I mean, this is that Joel, though. So
That is
people,
Yeah.
this
That
is
is a
great.
good thing to mention. You're winning game Joel, not TV show Joel.
Right. I mean, there are some similarities in clothing and potentially weaponry, But no, this is a good ass Joel. Look how big he is compared to me.
Yeah,
there you
he's
go.
amazing. He's amazing. So
I'll
that's
just keep him
the
back
grand prize.
in the box here.
Yeah.
Back in the box.
And that will be the winner will be announced live Monday, March 13th. We don't have a time for that just yet, but we'll update you guys over on our socials about that. But
We'll
it's
try
coming
to
up quick.
We'll try to hit it at a time that works for everyone, regardless of what time zone you're in. I know that's literally an impossible task,
Yes,
but
it is.
hopefully we can hit as many as we can.
Yes, that's what she said. So for this episode, as always, no spoilers. As best as I'm able to not spoil, I promise to always try my best. That's all I got. Our drop schedule, I'm not, we drop within 4 to 5 days of the show. Is it a Wednesday? If we're having a good slow week with work, yeah, it's going to be a Wednesday. But today it's either late Thursday or early Friday. Yeah. Wednesday adjacent.
It gives you so much latitude.
Yeah. But people are so receptive because I do try to post on our social medias when we're going to be late. And most people are like, oh my God, take your time. It's fine. It's good. We get it. So,
of course.
And we're beholden to the, corporate release schedule, as one of our amazing listeners, Brian, said in a direct message. He was like, you can only do so much. Like, you don't get the episodes before anybody else. So,
It's true. We're
yeah.
we're here in the trenches with y'all, so it's
Yeah.
great. I don't think anybody's gotten the last 2 episodes though, so I could be wrong about that, but I believe they're playing that pretty close to the chest.
I would not be surprised, although I have heard that they're spoiled. People don't go looking for spoilers. I know somebody who has, and I'm not going to say their name. She who shall not be named. But anyway, um our contact information, if you would like to email us, remember at the end of our season 1 review, we are doing a big ass bonus show where we're going to cover all of the emails that we have received since the beginning of this show. If you would like to be a part of that, and we would love for you to be a part of that, you can do that by emailing at tloupodcast@gmail.com. And if you don't want to email and you just want a direct message, you can do that either on Instagram or Twitter. Instagram, we are TLOU Podcasts. Twitter, we are TLOU Podcast. So yeah, but I'm gonna shut up because we got a bunch of reviews, and this is Andrew's territory
Oh
now.
man.
But you guys are amazing.
I put out the call and we
Every
get the
week.
response. Every
Mhm.
week you see me at the end of 4 to 5 hours of podcasting, a broken man. And to make me feel better, I wake up and I have these reviews to read. We're going to go chronologically here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with our review from Claymore77. Keeps it brief. Again, I said brevity, the soul of wit. I didn't say that. Shakespeare said that, but I stole it from Shakespeare.
Uh-huh.
Claymore says, giving 5 stars because 1, I agree with and share Andrew's intense hatred of Dave Matthews Band. 2, good show.
Clay, I recognize Claymore follows us. Hello, thank you for
Clay.
reviewing our show. It makes me very sad that everyone hates Dave Matthews Band.
Clay, Clay, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the 5 stars. Also,
yes,
unlike my co-host, I appreciate the order, the importance which you delegated the 5 stars. It is not to be. I don't want to overlook the importance of that. The dislike of Dave Matthews is really a lifelong pursuit. And we're a relatively new show. So I understand it's going to take a little bit of time for us to potentially supersede the dislike of Dave Matthews. So I love that we are number 2. Great. 5 stars. Love that.
hurts me. It hurts my soul.
No, it's fine.
I feel like it's like partially. By the way, just everyone, I got a new microphone, and I'm using the giant pop filter to be different because everyone who has this mic uses the one that Andrew has, the skinny little pop filter.
The very well designed.
This is well designed too. It might change, but I want it to be different.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
But it's like it's huge compared to my face. That's what she said twice already.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah,
great start.
Yeah, but thank you for the review.
Yeah. The next one comes from Brian, or Ryan _IP, whatever you want to be called. Brian, we chat on Instagram from time to time.
Brian Orion.
And Brian has recommended me many video games to play for our other podcast and stuff like that. So it's great. Brian's great.
Yeah.
Brian writes, you won't find a podcast more thoughtful, more granular, or more passionate when it comes to HBO's and Naughty Dog's The Last of Us. Jack's encyclopedic knowledge of the story is only matched by her eye for detail and her insights into the narrative process. Andrew is just as discerning, especially with his background and passions in camera work, lighting, and sound design. Beyond their unparalleled analysis, the pair effortlessly volley ideas and discussion points, balancing what could easily be an exhaustive recap with humor and tangents that will make the runtime breeze by. The Last Cast and Wayfaring Strangers are simply the most comprehensive and unofficial TLOU podcasts for both the show and the game. Nothing else comes close. See, Brian swung the other way. Wrote a lot, which we also appreciate.
Yes.
Brian, thank you.
Yes.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Well done.
I thanked Brian
I'm going to put
personally.
this on the website.
Yes, we do. We do need a section for reviews and stuff like that. I have to work on that. I spoke with Brian through Instagram direct messages and quite often actually because he sends a lot of Reddit articles and TikToks. I mean, just all very relevant and funny stuff sometimes. But I just side note, Brian, thank you for taking the time to do that. You've been supporting our shows for a really long time now, and us personally. And yeah, it's just important to be seen because of just how many podcasts there are now for The Last of Us. Yesterday was International Women's Day, and I had this conversation with him where I was basically like, most of the industries that I've involved myself with are male dominated industries, so making a name for myself has not been easy.
Mm.
So I have that chip on my shoulder sometimes when I talk about recognition and receiving crickets from people in influential positions that could take this podcast and elevate it. You know what I mean? Whether that's willful or just they're unaware of it, I don't know. But it it's not so. And I said brazenly, I was like, this is not something that's going to change for me. Likely, like I'm almost 40 years old, and I've been fighting for my place in every whether it's photography or writing or podcasting. Now it's hard and it's I'm not gonna fucking stop. Like, whether we get the acknowledgement or not, it is what it is, but I just appreciated that, and it came on a very significant day, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hey, look. Hey, 27 people 5-star agree with the work
Yeah.
that you put in. So there you go. More,
Us, the
but
work we put
27
in.
went out of the, went the extra mile.
Yeah, thank you.
This dovetails nicely into our final review.
Mhm.
This is from, okay, I mean, we'll see.
Keep it clean.
This is from, it's either Aubrey's Plaza or Aubrey S. Plaza. I happen to
Mm,
know that Aubrey Plaza's middle name is Christina, so I don't
wow.
know if it would be Aubrey S. Plaza. But hey, Aubrey, if it's you, hi, how you doing? Uh,
Andrew's in love with you.
right. I figure if this is my chance to shoot my shot,
Yeah,
you
I'll
know,
help. I'll help.
Jack, take your headphones off for just, I don't know, 5 minutes.
No,
No.
5
Uh,
minutes.
Aubrey's Plaza writes, best of both worlds. As someone who just started playing the game after having dropped it early on because it gave me too much anxiety. Oh, wait. I'm missing a parentheses here. Because of the show. Oh, okay. As someone who just started playing the game after having dropped it early on because it gave me too much anxiety because of the show, that's why they started playing the game.
Mhm.
This podcast is such a perfect companion to both. I get to learn a bit about the game without learning too much, thanks to the super vague anti-Mad Lib non-spoilers from Jack, person in a place with a thing. That was editorialized by me. While willfully ignoring / excusing any show inconsistency for the sake of enjoying a thing, like Andrew. Can't wait to finish the game and move on to listening to Wayfaring Strangers to hear more insights. Aubrey's Plaza or Aubrey S. Plaza, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Honestly, you made the podcast team's day by leaving us a review. Of course, you also made Andrew's like year just with
Yeah.
the notion that you could be the one and only Aubrey Plaza.
Right. And if you're not, that's also okay, because clearly you're
Yeah,
also a fan. You might just be named Aubrey Plaza, which is
amazing.
great. Super cool.
Amazing. Yeah, a little jealous there. Not gonna lie.
Either way, keep on keeping on.
Yes. So, thank you everyone who has taken the time to review, drop us 5 stars. Andrew's imploration is working every week.
I cast a spell at the end of every episode, and more people fall victim to it. It's
It's true.
incredible.
It's true. That sounds bad, but I want people to be
No, it's like a good spell.
under our yeah. Or
There are
anyway,
good spells.
there are good spells. There absolutely are good spells. So keep on keeping on. times 2. So the HBO episode 8 summary, When We Are in Need, has not been updated. So it just says, after a global pandemic destroys civilization, a hardened survivor takes charge of a 14-year-old girl who may be humanity's last hope. That's not really the description of episode 8, but nobody whoever is in charge of that job at HBO did not do their job this week.
Yeah,
So,
they skipped that on the checklist. They're like,
yeah. Yeah.
damn it.
So, maybe Andrew has his summary?
Wow, the confidence. Here's not only do I have my summary, okay,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I'm going to time
you know,
you. I'm
listen, you've given
here.
me. I'm going to tell you something incredible, listeners. If I might just take a moment here,
you.
Jackie has oft criticized me about my notes here, and that how they start strong, if you want to use strong, and then taper.
Mhm.
So what I did was I did my notes as I normally would do them, right?
Mhm.
Listen, are you listening to me?
I'm
I
listening to
did
you. I'm
my
just getting it
notes,
ready.
right? Then and they were long. They were about the same length as previous notes, like recaps that I've done.
Yeah.
However,
Oh.
I then copy pasted all of that and I put it into Chat GPT and I said, summarize this in 300 words or less. And I'm going to read you exactly what Chat GTP summarized my custom notes as.
Oh,
Does
you
that
might
sound?
upset people who
No,
hate.
I wrote the original notes, so I'm just summarizing my own work
All
because
right. All
clearly
right.
I can't be trusted to do it.
Okay. All right, let's go.
All right, here's episode 8 recap
Man, we're a hot mess today.
according to me / the AI.
Mhm.
The penultimate episode of this season opens with images of snow blowing across a frozen lake and a voiceover reciting a verse from the biblical book of Revelation. The episode reveals our heroes to yet another community's solution to the problem of living in a cordyceps-infected world. But instead of the dystopia and chaos of previous encounters, they find a pure horror show. The residents of Silver Lake live in terror and despair, disguised as faith, and it's impossible to tell where their fear ends and their belief begins. The episode performs a brilliant balancing act, accomplished largely via the performance of Scott Shepard, who plays David, the leader of the town of Silver Lake. David is a soft-spoken man of God who presides over his small flock in a converted steakhouse. The episode stages David's turn so well, it's easy to believe he is a genuine leader. But his people are experiencing a rough winter, leading them to cast a wider net in search for food, which can be dangerous. They recently lost a member, a father with a mourning child, who had the misfortune of encountering a crazy man traveling with a little girl. At that moment, Ellie realizes David isn't quite who he seems to be. It won't be the last such moment before We Are All in Need ends. The episode offers a glimpse into the human condition in a post-apocalyptic world and the ways in which people use religion to cope with their surroundings.
Mm.
Vague enough?
Here, hold on.
What did we get?
Hold on.
Where are we
I
at?
got. Where do you think you were at?
2 minutes.
125.
Yes! Yes!
Now I gotta put my fucking watch back on.
90 seconds, baby. A tight 90, as we like to
But
call
again,
it.
it's so heavy. It's
It's
so
that's
front heavy.
that's the most broad thing.
Uh-huh.
No details were revealed there other than setting and people. And
Good.
that it has religious underpinnings.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are up first, so let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay. That's Mike work right there, people. We see a sweeping shot of a frozen town, mountains behind. The wind is blowing. We just covered this, but that's okay.
You just skipped over that we didn't have a credit sequence, or we no cold open number 6.
It was a cold open, but because it was cold, there was snow everywhere.
I'm death glaring Andrew right now.
Here's what I'll say. I believe we predicted after, what was it, episode 2? When was the last time we had a cold open? 2?
2. Yeah.
I think I predicted we're not going to have another one until the finale. I still stand by that. I think 9 will open with a cold open, and that'll be it, right? And then I think that'll be good. That
I
I'm
agree, but to skip
sticking my
that with the last 2 episodes, I mean, you're gonna drive me nuts.
Oh, well, okay. This is the 6th without a cold open. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
uh, we open with a sweeping shot of a frozen town. We see the mountains. It's very beautiful, very cold, but very beautiful. Wind is blowing. We hear a man off screen quoting Revelation 21, which is, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle with God is with man, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. A young girl cries, and the man sees this and approaches her. There's a sign behind him reading, When we are in need, he shall provide."
Mm.
You want to mention something here? Sounds like you want to mention something here.
No,
No?
that's a
Okay.
reference for me to add that to the game spoiler section. So
Okay.
anytime you see that, just bypass it.
Later.
Mhm.
Later. He
Later.
talks of how he's read this passage many times and quizzes the girl on the following lines. She doesn't know, but he says, "And God will wipe away all tears from their eyes, for there will be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither will there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." She understands the meaning, and he touches her and says, "Good." She then asks when they can bury him. David turns to look at another man in the room, and that other man is Troy Baker. If you don't know who that is Joel from the video games,
Mhm.
which is very cool.
Yeah.
The other man, James, just turns away. Like they lock eyes, but James kind of turns away.
Mhm.
The ground is too frozen, David says. They'll bury her father in the spring. There's no discussion after this. The people disperse. James stays to talk with David. They talk about the dwindling food supply, venison, elk, rabbit, that sort of thing. And there's only about 1 to 2 weeks of food left for everyone
Mm.
if they play their cards right,
Mm.
essentially. There might be some deer around, though. James' name is revealed as he walks away, and it's just kind of it's like mid conversation. We didn't know who this person was, but it's James.
Mhm.
David sensed doubt from James. Not lost faith, is what he says. He hasn't lost faith, he's just scared. James still believes, but it has been hard. David needs affirmation that James is still with him. He is, right? It seems a little reluctant, but he is. And
Mhm.
then James is sent off to get their guns because it is time to hunt. Let's pause
Yes.
here before the
Yeah.
hunt.
Yeah, I just have to give a shout out to Troy Baker.
TB?
Yeah, TB appear I mean, again, Joel is just everything to me in my life, and Troy brought him to life. So my Joel is Troy Baker's Joel. And as soon as Troy's character James started talking, I heard Joel's voice. Troy's voice is slightly higher.
Yeah.
His natural voice is slightly higher, and what he does with Joel is he lowers it and adds a Texan accent to that.
Hmm.
And Troy was born in Texas, and he's talked a little bit about that. He's like, it comes in handy, but I knew when I moved and was going to be a part of Hollywood, I had to kind of change that. But of course, he can access that very quickly. Um, there wasn't the twang to James's voice, but the low tone, the
The
cadence was
rumbly.
certainly there. Yeah. Even the soft spoken Joel was more soft spoken in The Last of Us Part 2 than he was in Part 1.
Hmm.
And James was more along those lines. So
Yeah.
I feel like it was an intentional choice. I do not care if anyone agree or I mean if you agree with me that's great, but if you disagree with me, I don't care.
I don't care if you agree with me.
I
God
don't
damn it.
care. I feel like it was an intentional move because I do think that while Troy is very openly supportive of Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller in the show, I think there also is a little bit of that protectiveness over the character as well.
Sure.
And uh he just put that into James's voice and I absolutely loved it. So Troy, if in some way you are listening to this, thank you. Hats off to
Yeah.
you.
Well, with Neil, at the helm of, as executive producer, and Craig, who is also
Mhm.
a big fan of the games, it makes sense where they'd be like, "Hey, dude, like, give us like 75% Joel." you know,
Yeah.
don't turn
Yeah.
it all the way to 100. Give us like 75%, Joel.
Yeah. And I think that's what he did.
Yeah,
So, yeah. I loved it. So David, let's talk about David.
sure.
First
I'm
of all,
ready.
Scott Shepherd, for fans of Breaking Bad, Scott Shepherd was on that episode of Breaking Bad where they were going to the bad men who pretended to be FBI agents
Hmm.
to raid the apartment where the money was in the fridge and
Yeah.
Jesse was hiding out. Scott Shepherd was one of them. He was the one with the mustache. I don't know if you remember that.
Wait a minute. That was El Camino?
Oh, it was El Camino.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean
I
Breaking
want.
Bad El Camino.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
show.
Right.
But
Yeah, El Camino.
yeah,
He was great in that. He was
he
like
was.
legitimately great in that role. Yes.
Yeah, but now he's tainted forever. Scott, you took this role and now you're a creep forever. I'm
It's
sorry.
kind of like when you choose to play Jesus in a thing. You're now
Mm,
Jesus
Jim
for Jim.
Caviezel.
It's like literally just name it. Actually, you know what? I take that back because that is not true.
I know who you're gonna say.
Who am I going to say? Tell me.
Willem Dafoe.
That's right. The Last
Yeah,
Temptation of Christ.
yeah,
How did he? What a. Oh, man. All
yeah,
right. That's all I'm saying.
yeah,
He went on to be the Green Goblin. It's great.
yeah. And now Willem Dafoe is the Green Goblin in my head, not Jesus. But Jim Caviezel was
Right.
Jesus in The Passion of the
There's
Christ,
only
and that's
one
all.
path. Yeah, there's one path for actors. You can if you are Jesus, you then have to be the Green Goblin to absolve that, and then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, you go full evil, and then yeah. So that's what Scott did here. But so David, all right, back to the show. David was presented as a preacher slash a man of God.
Yeah,
So I just want to talk about the implications of religion in
sure.
a post-apocalyptic world versus the communist settlement in Jackson where people working together
Hmm.
and finding purpose and peace and family seems to be better. And I think that and again, we're not going to go too deep into this cuz I don't want to alienate anyone.
Sure.
But the show definitely uh in a lot of senses took a side here where they exposed someone who was abusing the power and control of religion. So this
Right.
isn't actual religion. He is abusing his power as
Yeah.
a quote unquote preacher man. Uh and these people are suffering. They are starving, they are cold, they are dying. I mean, they're being fed to one another. It's awful. But then you have, the big bad idea of communism in Jackson and it's flourishing. And it's an interesting polarization and I think that can happen with people without even realizing it when you're
Sure.
like, "Oh, this one thing is bad." Uh but is it bad or is it just because of the government that runs it that's bad? There's so many ways that you can talk about this, but I just found it interesting because David in the game wasn't touted as preacher. Like he
Y-
was just the leader of a group of people.
yes.
So it they took that and kind of perverted this idea of religion in the post-apocalyptic world, which is not the first time we're going to see this, and that's all I can say.
Wow.
But
Wow. Wowie. Wow.
um but it it was an interesting choice. I think David was already really fucking creepy in the game without it. Adding this element certainly layered a lot on that creepiness, but I don't think and we're going to talk about this a little bit a lot of it as the show progresses, but I don't think that it was never about God ever.
You think?
It was about him
Yeah.
believing he was God. It was just it was so disturbing, I think is the appropriate word.
I think the show has done a really great job of showing m- all of the possible types, well, not all yet, but all
Mhm.
of the possible types of permutations of government that would happen. So a QZ like Boston, we see
Mhm.
like a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, to a greater or lesser degree, we had something that resembled a democracy or a republic, right? We had she like I'm
In
spacing
Kansas
on.
City?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she was, I mean,
You're talking about the rebellion when she took over.
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Okay, I
She
was
was
still
the
thinking.
she was the leader, but she had like advisors, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, they chose her to lead essentially. Like the people decided that you tell us what to do. And that could just be a virtue of somebody who is very decisive, has risen through the ranks, whatever.
Yeah.
Here then we go to Jackson and we have a communism essentially, right? Here we have a religious theocracy.
Mhm.
Uh, the show has a lot of things to say about that,
Yeah.
um, as it did with communism, as it did with a military dictatorship, and all those things.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see that it really does. It very often it does not come down to the individual. It comes down to the individual people, not necessarily the group. I don't believe that all of these people here are killer cannibals. I just
No,
think that
they
the people,
we
it
know
just
that they didn't
filters down.
know.
Yeah, exactly correct. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Mhm.
assumed all of the people here are just scared and confused and need help. And
Yeah.
so they have just decided to be a part of this world.
Yeah. But I think it's a little bit more than that, and we'll talk more about that as we progress through the episode and
Sure.
get more evidence to kind of speak to this other sinister side, I think.
Okay. All right.
Um, but the look before we move on, the look shared between James and David when discussing the dead man, and of course, this is the man that Joel killed at the university. This was the first red flag of many because you and I knew from the game that David was a cannibal and he fed people however many whatever. We knew that. So when that first look happened and she's asking when can we bury my father? And it is true. Burying someone in winter is you need a backhoe. You can't just dig the ground up.
That's true.
And so while there's validity to his statement, we also know that that's not what he means either. So whoever they would have buried in the spring had, you know, everything gone to plan, the rest of the episode would not have been her father.
When are we going to bury him? He's already on the grill, man.
Yeah, oh god, it's so
He
disgusting.
wasn't. He goes into the stew, I believe.
Yes, he does.
He's kind of
Oh,
like a dad goulash, as it were.
oh, we're moving on. We are moving on. So now we are back with Joel and Ellie. Ellie is checking. Ellie is checking Joel's wound and it's stitched up, but it is infected and juicy looking and it's terrible and
Don't call
ugh.
it juicy. Don't say
I'm
that.
I don't like that word, so that's why I used it. But she
Okay.
asks if he's thirsty, and of course he doesn't reply. He's kind of in and out of conscious and mostly out of it. But she taps his lips with water to help him drink to just get something in there. And after, she unwraps the last of their food, which is barely anything, and splits it with him and basically devours her half because we can tell that, Ellie's starving by now.
Yeah.
And then she places that other small bit on him just in case he wakes up. And this poor girl is just so hungry, but his breathing sounds awful. It's gurgly, does not sound good. And Ellie whispers to him that she'll be right back. And she leaves the house with the rifle. And before she kind of starts to walk, she peers around, but no one is there. And into the woods she goes, and it's absolutely gorgeous. We get so many landscape shots and residential shots. It's just absolutely stunning. I have to go there. We have to really get on Wayfair and West. That's all I'm saying. But
Calgary.
yes, well, should be Colorado or
No, it's
Utah, but anyway,
Calgary.
yeah.
Calgary.
But first, we see a white rabbit, and we talked about this in the last episode, and I can finally talk about it in full, but she sees the rabbit but ends up tripping, falling, spooks the bunny, and the rabbit lives this time around. If you would like to know more about this, we'll talk about that in the game section,
Okay.
game spoiler section at the end of the show. Continuing on from here, she hears an animal sound, some sort of sound that is close to her. And it's interesting because it sounds a bit like clicking, which I thought was curious. But
Hmm.
it turns out that it is a nice sized buck. And so she gets down, gets low, she sets herself up. She is eager to snipe this deer because she's starving. They need food. So, using Joel's method of exhaling, she breathed out and then fires and she hits the deer, but doesn't down it for good. However, it is hurting and it runs off. She chases it and then we see a sweeping shot of the condensed forest afterwards, and oh man, my brain just went, how easy it would be to get lost in this wilderness and never ever get back to Joel.
Right.
That's where I would die. But before we move on, so Joel is just not doing well. He's sweaty, he's pale, he's unconscious. It's not looking good for him. And I think we can all assume that had she not gotten antibiotics, he would have died probably in the next couple days. He can't
Yeah.
drink, he can't eat. So this was an interesting section because the moments of Joel being tended to, which are not many, they're very quick, happen in the DLC, in Left Behind primarily. And we do see him in the game in the winter chapter, but this was more realistic overall, like trying to give him water, talking to him,
Yeah.
like because that's the human part of us. Even if someone's out of it, like we're going to try and talk to them
Yeah. You
because
got to imagine.
yeah, we have to hope that they can hear us somewhere. And so again, the realism on this show just keeps hitting in waves, and it's wonderful. So the
Very
white
nice.
rabbit, yeah, the white rabbit and Ellie's hunting skills or lack thereof.
What?
So she was much better. She was a much better hunter in the game. And of course, we can assume this from Joel teaching her. And we got that one moment in the episode where he was showing her how to fire, hit the bag, but it ended up with him firing and nailing it and kind of showing off for a 14-year-old, and then they left. So I
Boom. So
hope,
much better than you.
yeah,
Boom.
yeah, like
Suck it, kid.
roasted. But
Get dunked.
I hope that they have. I mean, I can't see where they would have had more time or opportunity or the ammo to do that. So how much has she learned? In the game, Ellie claimed that she was good with a bow and arrow.
Hmm. Hmm.
That has played absolutely no factor in the show. But, she trips and falls and literally lands like face palms in the snow in the pursuit of this bunny. And that is not someone who is well versed with hunting. It's just not.
Yeah.
So it seems like either she hasn't had enough lessons from Joel about hunting, but the one that they did show us, she still remembers enough to be like, exhale, don't pull the trigger, squeeze it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was
I
just
agree.
interesting.
Yeah. And we don't know. I mean, again, the circumstances of hunting, right? You could be the best hunter in, let's say, the summertime. And then you go to hunt in the winter and it's a completely different scenario, right? I can only
A lot of hunting takes place in the winter and fall months, though.
sure, but I'm saying like if you're gonna go like again, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So
I do.
but if you're gonna be like
I don't
uh,
hunt.
when
My
you
dad did.
hunt, let's call it like let's say like quail, right? I feel like when you go to hunt a quail, it's generally not wintertime. I feel like that's a non-controversial statement to say. Every depiction I've seen of hunting quail has been like lush greenery, right? And you might kick ass at being quail hunter, right?
Yeah.
But then when it comes to rabbit, that's a completely different thing.
Hmm.
And so also she's hungry and it's friggin' cold as hell.
Yeah.
So all these things are working against her here. I'm
I
willing to give her the
no.
benefit of the doubt that, well, like you said, I'm not saying that you're saying she's not a good hunter either, because she friggin' like it was like a direct hit on that
Hmm.
deer or the
Yeah.
buck. So yeah, that's all. That's all. She missed with the rabbit. She got too excited. She saw this rabbit. She's like, oh, I remember we just had rabbit not too long ago.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Oh shit. And I
Yeah.
slipped and I fell. We've all
Yeah.
been there. We've all been there.
Well, I I know enough about hunting. My dad hunted most of his life. I never did because it's just not for me. I'm not judging anyone who does, but it's yeah. Well, no, I judge the trophy sport hunters who pay like $100,000 to go to Africa to hunt a fucking lion. Get the fuck out of here. But um, deer population, things like that has to be controlled. So
Sure.
that's why you get permits and licenses and everything else. But in this world, it's just a lot different. There's so many external elements that you're talking about, like and she's fucking 14.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, did she have the proper permits to even be there for this hunting?
oh my
Is the
god.
question.
Oh my god.
Is the real question.
So,
The legality of her hunting.
but moving on. So I just wanna talk about navigating the wilderness
Sure.
at any age.
Okay.
I need to put that out there.
At any
At
age.
any age.
Now, then.
Yeah, she's as a 14-year-old, I would have fucking got lost and never been seen again. As a 39-year-old, I would get lost and never fucking be seen again.
Right.
I think that this is something I feel like there are people just with this natural gift of being really good with a sense of direction,
Sure.
and those are the people that I wanna travel with
Right.
because that is not me.
We're gonna need your names.
Yes, please.
Ideally alphabetized.
I can do a whole bunch of stuff and protect and lead.
You
Andrew
protect.
can cook, but well, I will get fucking lost in
Yeah.
the woods.
All right. I mean, that's fair. You got to know thyself, know thy strengths, right?
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I b honestly, I alright, we're discussing the wilderness. I would probably have to do something where, like, I'd have to mark trees as I went along or, like, a fucking string or,
It's
like,
the
something.
longest string in
It
history.
doesn't matter. I would just need to do something because it's, like, a genuine fear of mine.
Getting lost in the woods.
Yes, because I love hiking and I love getting out there, but oof, I know you just have a compass and you're fine. Like,
Hmm.
but most of the time I don't have a compass on me. I
Yeah,
guess on my
your
phone,
phone has
but
GPS. That's
yeah.
also,
Anyway,
yeah.
tangent.
Just look at my. Oh, I'm due northeast. Got it. All right,
Yeah.
just turn this way. I'm going back this way.
I
It's
know.
great.
I know, but I feel like even with that, I'd be like using it too much and then my shit would die and I'd be like
Then you got to do that thing where like you fill a leaf with water and then you
the
get a
needle.
bobby pin or a needle and you
Oh,
cause
because I
static
have
electricity
yeah,
and
I
then you
have
put
them
it
on
in the
me.
water and it points due north
Mm.
or true north. I don't remember. Yeah,
I don't
someone let
have
me know.
a bobby pin or a fucking needle on me at any point.
Listen, I'm
I
just
guess I
telling you
have
when you
to.
go hiking, you should have both of those things
I'll have a
in the
compass,
event that you need to create a water needle
a real one,
compass.
a real one.
You might lose that.
I'll have a
Maybe.
backup compass.
Right. I have the big one. The big one that is the whole size of my hand, easy to read.
I
It's
hang
like
it
those.
around my neck
It's like those. Yeah, like
like Flava Flav with his clock.
that's what I was gonna say.
I
Like
knew
Flavor
it.
Flav, like a
I
whole
knew it.
ass gold chain. This is my reading compass. It's like the remotes with the giant buttons for when I'm 85 years old. But then I have a little backup compass.
Says the 75-year-old man.
That's true. I got a couple more years.
I'm sorry.
We're moving on. We're
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah.
No more getting lost in the woods. David and James are standing over a dead buck, looking around for the hunter. Rifles drawn, they wander. They wonder on just like we should just take this thing right
Mhm.
before they show up.
Yeah.
At that moment, Ellie yells at them as they move in to grab the deer, and they stop, drop their rifles, and follow her orders. She is not messing around, right?
Mm.
Any sudden movements, they get one right between the eyes. David begins grooming from second one with a compliment on her hunting skills and that she is silent. They didn't even hear her.
Mm.
David convinces Ellie to listen to her by sharing names. He says that they're part of a larger group that's very hungry. Ellie lies about being part of a large hungry group too. But David says the deer is too big for her to drag back on her own. They offer to trade with her some of the deer for whatever she might need. David lists off a bunch of stuff that they have, and medicine is one of them, and she says that is what I need. They make a deal. James will go get the meds, and then
Howard, the town doctor or whatever, has the
yeah,
penicillin.
Howard, he's like, go ask Howard for 2 things of penicillin and a syringe or whatever, 2 bottles and a syringe. David affirms that it's like, it is pretty funny. Like James looks at him and he like cocks is like, I don't know what you want me to do with this information. And David's like, it's not code. Just go get the stuff. And I thought that was very funny. Like, I was like, that's
Mhm.
pretty good. And then James is off. Ellie orders David to take 10 steps back from the deer. David asks if that's her dad's rifle, if he's the one who's sick, and that's why she's out here on her own. Um, but then we find out that it's a 4-mile trip to town and back, so they're going to be here a while. Ellie empties the chambers of David and James' rifles, and she listens to his plan of going inside while they wait this 4 hours. There's like a house kind of nearby-ish. They drag the deer inside too, so Ellie's like, "You take that with you," right? And Ellie watches him do it. Once inside, they talk by a fire. A lot of bravado, a lot of posturing from Ellie, and just statements of fact from David. Um, Basically saying she shouldn't be out here alone. But Ellie comes back. She's the one with the gun, so he shouldn't be out here alone. Very, very, very cool. Very turnabout is fair play. He tries to get her name. Ellie does not give it and talks of trust and how he means her no harm. He even invites her to his hunger club, which is delightful. Ellie politely declines. Not so politely, but declines. David says he's a decent man. Anyone who says anyone who says this is not a decent man. Okay, right?
I'm a nice guy. No,
if
you're
you
not.
have to say it, it's probably not true, right?
Yeah.
It's Ellie asks if he's the leader, and he says it was, but it wasn't his choice. They chose to follow him. Ellie asks if it's a weird cult thing. Pretty standard Bible stuff. Ellie finds it unbelievable that religion should matter with the end of the world. And David admits that he actually found religion after the end of the world. Before that, he was a math teacher and he taught kids Ellie's age, approximately. Teacher to preacher, because it fucking rhymes. Very cool, very fun. But seriously, he found God after the apocalypse. And he explains that when the Pittsburgh QZ fell in 2017, it was the Fireflies versus Fedra. He ended up just like escaping, leaving with a few others, and that's led his flock to where they are right now. So they'd settle, and then raiders came. So they were wandering and picking up new people all along this journey from Pittsburgh to where, they're not in Jackson, they're in Colorado, but, roughly in that neck of the woods, middle of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie talks about how their luck had to run out sooner or later. David doesn't believe in luck. Everything happens for a reason. Ellie smiles this away, and they begin to feel a bit more at ease with each other. He talks of how cruel this winter has been. And because of this, he sent 4 people to a nearby town, and only 3 of them came back. The one that wasn't was a father, had a daughter just like Ellie. And this is where you hear the music takes a little bit of a little twist, right? Things get a little bit more tense at this point. Her dad was murdered by this crazy man who was traveling with a little girl. Ellie raises the rifle at that moment. See, he says, everything happens for a reason. David said Ellie rears at that. Well, first of all, James appears in the door behind her, right? And he has a gun, and David says, lower the gun, right? And James asks if she's the one who killed Alex, right? And David said, she didn't kill anybody, right? This one, she didn't do anything. Lower the gun, man. James brought the medicine. David orders him to throw it to her. James protests, but eventually gives in. Ellie tells them to back away and just books it right out of there. David knows she's not with the group and she won't survive long out there. Offers to protect her again, but they watch her leave. James protests and he's like, you're just going to let her get away? And David just stares, and it is not a good stare. Ellie turns back once to see that she isn't being followed and then continues on through the forest. Not lost. Like you would be. Like I would be. Like all of us might be.
All right, so let's talk. So David, all right, the word grooming is used a lot nowadays. And I think a lot of people misuse a lot of words that have very serious implications from both a legal standpoint and a humane or inhumane standpoint. But what David really is doing from the get-go with Ellie is that is like textbook grooming. He's complimenting her. He's diffusing the situation and then complimenting her because he knows that however tough or hardened this child is, she's still just a child. And that is deeply deviant behavior. And I truly hope that everyone watching this show picked up on that from literally minute 1.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, and we are going to ask at least one question throughout this episode, but I really am interested for people listening who have no knowledge of the games. Did you pick up on that from David from the get-go? Because we see this preacher, but there's kind of weird vibes. The music is off. He even his like right-hand man questions him like this isn't code. So clearly he has spoken in code before.
Hmm.
And so much so that his man doesn't even understand, like, if this is real or not. But then I don't know. It's just there's so many layers to this that it's hard for me because there's so much more to come with the episode. It's hard for me to stop talking about it. But this was a really Scott Shepherd is never going to be anything but David now, and it makes me sad for his career.
Unless he becomes the Green Goblin, we don't know.
Maybe. Or Jesus Christ, I guess.
It would, yeah. There is a pattern to this.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to hear from people who did not know about David beforehand, because there's a difference between how media portrays people, uh, devout people, right,
Sure.
as a little, let's just say, off,
Mhm.
versus the true depths of depravity that David goes to.
Mhm.
So I can I don't know. I don't have an objective. I don't have an objective viewpoint because
Yeah, we can't.
I knew who David was going in.
Mhm.
And then also it they made the people of the town, Silver Lake, they made them uh look kind of away, right? It's
Mhm.
hard to explain. Like, they're a little dirty. They're
They're poverty. They're living in
Yeah, I
poverty.
mean, but
Mhm.
they're but beyond just how they look physically, also many of them emaciated, like very skinny.
Yeah. Their
They
hair
all they're Yeah,
unkempt.
there's also like a sadness there as well that's just unspoken, right?
Yeah.
So all, all that is to say, that is in very stark contrast to how David carries himself before he even
Yes.
does like some pretty horrific shit.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But please, if you didn't get those vibes, at least by this point, I would love to hear what that was like.
Mhm. And I think to kind of backpedal a little bit, I'm not saying that an adult diffusing a situation where he has a rifle pointed at him
Sure.
and then complimenting a child is inherent deviant behavior. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying what we know about this character going in, those are all the signs that were right there from the beginning. That I mean, it even disturbs me to hear that he was a teacher in his prior life and
Sure.
specifically taught Ellie's age group. So it's like, what kind of fucking shit did this guy do or hold himself back from doing that now the apocalypse has allowed him to do for so long?
Yeah. A friend of mine, Luke, you know Luke, he watches this with his wife. And so then, so his wife oftentimes she's like, I have to watch it during the day. It's too stressful for me. Like, so
Yeah.
Luke will watch it as it airs, and then
Mhm.
he usually watches the episodes again, like Monday or Tuesday morning or afternoon, when
Mhm.
the sometime when the sun is up, right?
Yeah.
With his wife.
Yeah.
And Luke had said, what he also having played the game, but saying watching the episode a second time around,
Mm.
knowing like what the end point is was even more disturbing than going in with game knowledge, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's kind of an interesting, even for him who had played the game, knew David.
Mhm.
He's like watching it that second time, it was like extra creepy.
Yeah.
And he used the throw up emoji. So
Blech.
that's how you know it's extra creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you involve the vomit emoji, it's like
Vom.
you're yeah, vom David. But that we're gonna continue to talk about David throughout the entire episode. Actually, the t- 3 out of 4 comments that we're gonna talk about right now are about
Hmm.
David. The second one, so David isolates him and Ellie in this moment by sending James off on a real mission for Ellie. So
Hmm.
this is again, this just continues this practice that we come to see is all a very certain kind of deviant behavior. He's trying to earn her trust. And this surprises James, but unfortunately it works until he basically shows his hand by the fire
Sure.
when he's talking to her. And because there was even a moment where Ellie just sort of like even not laughs but chuckles at something, and you can see her rifle slowly lower. She's being disarmed without even realizing it.
Yeah.
That's how like deeply psychological this predator is aware. Like he understands what to do. And that is the dangerous kind of fucking pedophile. Oh, I mean they're all kill them all, but like that's just the worst.
Hmm.
And it's so disturbing seeing this from the beginning. But in that same conversation, so Ellie uses a line, she uses Tess's line about luck running out. And I
Hmm.
thought that was interesting because it made me wonder if she felt threatened, like especially threatened by David more than just the average stranger danger.
Hmm.
What do you think there? Because she's uh, just like the thing that we've been talking about in this show in particular over the last 8 episodes is how the influences of all the people that Joel and Ellie are meeting on this journey change them and become a part of them. So, like Joel's backpack is Henry's now for always. And um I'm forgetting the other thing that became theirs. I- uh like Bill, like that their truck. Like
Frank's gun
Frank's gun is
is
Ellie's
yeah, yeah,
pistol.
yeah,
Yeah,
all that
like
stuff.
all these pieces are being left behind
Sure.
for
You just did it too.
for I sure did. All these pieces of people that have come in and out of their life are being left behind. And while Ellie didn't have anything from Tess, she had the small amount of wisdom with the time, the ephemeral amount of time that she
Sure.
spent with her. So, do you think that she used that as just a conversational tactic or because she felt next level uneasy around David?
I think it was probably a little bit more conversational, but it is that thing of like when I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but if you like hear a cool turn of phrase,
Yeah.
you will just try to incorporate that into your own vocabulary
Yeah.
by virtue of like you're like, wow, I really like that. That's like super, super cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Ellie was like that was a very tense moment when all that was said. And I'm sure it like had an impact on her to the point where she was probably still processing it. Like she's like looking at Joel like she's not talking with him because he's not talking back, right? It's just like uh and
Mm.
so she probably has a lot of time alone with her thoughts. And then it's like, oh, let me just review the Rolodex of traumatic shit that's happened so far, right?
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
so possibly
Mhm.
thoughts of Tess came to mind, remembering those last moments right there and that conversation, which was very impactful.
Mhm.
You know, I, I I think she looked up to Tess in the very short amount of time that they had
For sure.
together, right?
Yeah.
Like a very strong female role model for her.
Mhm.
And she was like, "Yeah, Lux run. Yeah, that's really good. That's good. That's good. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna store that. One of those types of things." So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if there was any deeper meaning behind it. I would love it if there was, but I mean, I couldn't infer one
Mhm.
if prompted.
Yeah. I found it interesting to hear that line
Yeah,
from her, and I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember if Joel said it again at some point. I but it was Tess, right?
it was Tessa's line. Yeah,
Yeah. As she,
shows the bite.
shows the bite, yeah.
Yeah.
So, oops, yeah. All right. So David is, in my not so humble opinion, the biggest villain in game 1,
What?
uh, for Joel and Ellie specifically. And I just like I don't want to hammer this home, but I really hope that people glean that by the end of this episode.
He's the final boss.
In a lot of ways, like, I'm not saying, traumatic shit is not gonna happen in episode 9 because it's The
Sure.
Last of Us. I think people realize,
Right.
yeah, it's gonna
No one
happen.
gets out. No one gets out of this one without some scratches.
Yeah, but this person, he's so quiet in his control,
Hmm.
and seeing someone like James, like, Troy Baker is, like, 6'4" or something like that, and Scott Shepherd is shorter. And I'm not saying that like, "Oh, because you're taller, you need to be the leader." I'm not saying that. But it is a presence thing.
Yeah.
I think stature and how you carry yourself and not necessarily confidence in the post-apocalypse, but having presence is what makes all the difference in these situations. And
Sure.
James following him despite the poor decisions that he thinks David is doing one after the next, and now with Ellie, is really proof of how deranged this man must be and what events prior to this moment might have looked like. Like how bad are things how bad are some of the things that James has witnessed by David, that even though he disagrees with everything this guy is doing, he's still his lapdog.
Yeah,
That's scary.
it is. I agree with that. I
Mhm.
don't have much more to add.
That's fine.
It's more of just a
Statement.
yeah, that
Yeah.
feels good.
Yeah. Quick short scene. So we're back with Joel and Ellie is in the basement with Joel again. Joel is still asleep on the mattress as Ellie races down the stairs to him, or she's downstairs now with him. I got ahead of myself. But she sets her gear down and goes to the penicillin immediately. And she raises his shirt and exposes the wound again. And even at this point, his belly, his abdomen looks a little distended. It just, ugh, I,
It's bad. It's
it's
bad
bad.
news.
It's so bad. But she has no idea what she is doing and doesn't know where the fuck to put the needle and expresses as such. And she decides in the end to put it right into the wound itself. And his breaths are choppy, not necessarily wheezing, but certainly there's like gurgle to them still as he rests. We know that's not actually resting, it is fitful. But she empties a full syringe into his wound and then covers Joel again and then reaches for his forehead because gauging his temperature is important. If somebody has a fever, they have an infection. That's just how that goes. So she rounds the small mattress and then lays herself down beside him, and she lays her head onto his heart. But also, I think this is in part like she wants to make sure his heart is still beating
Hmm.
throughout the night, while also having that double usage of being warm, because that's the best way to be warm in a situation like this, is to be close to someone. And
Yeah.
Joel leans his head towards hers unknowingly, but somewhere he knows that he is safe despite being completely out of it. And I think that that was a really beautiful choice for the actors of the directing, either or both.
Hmm.
But Ellie, her eyes are wide open so that we can deduce that this will also not be a restful night for her whatsoever. So the panic that Ellie shows over where to stick the needle, along with like she didn't have this moment of how much fucking liquid do I put into the syringe? Like it was just fill this fucker up. Where do I do this? And I love this because I can't imagine what like medical professionals thought while watching this.
Oh God, no, no, no!
Yeah. Like but anyone unaffiliated with the medical field would be acting just like this and freaking the fuck out. And I am among them. I have never worked in medicine in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I actively fucking avoid it because I'm terrified of doctors. But
Look,
I was just like, that would be me. I'd be like, wake up! Where do I put the needle? Because how much do you put in? Do,
all of it,
I'm
clearly.
like, I literally don't know. So anybody at home, if you were involved with medicine in any way, shape, or form, please message us. How did that scene make you feel?
Right. It's
Yeah. Oh, the realness. It
it's
was so real.
right.
Yeah.
I I don't know, but I don't penicillin. Have I even ever had penicillin? I feel like I have had penicillin, right? But
Probably when
like
we were younger.
but not injected. It's definitely a thing you can take like as a pill, right?
I don't
So
even know. I guess, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that it's just a general antibiotic that you would have is, like just you just so like
Yeah.
I have no I literally, when I was watching that too, I'd be like, I guess you just want to put it as close to the source of the infection as possible. But again,
Yeah.
it's like, is it better to put it in the bloodstream or I remember you were like, I'd stick it in his ass, like, in the ass cheek, right? Like,
Well,
or yeah,
every severe, like, because I have severe allergies to, like, ibuprofen and morphine and
sure.
things like that, and
They'll give
every
you,
time I've had a bad reaction, it's a giant needle right in my ass.
yeah. Or, if you take like an EpiPen, isn't like the upper thigh, you
The
hit it
upper
in the
thigh,
thigh,
yeah,
right?
mhm.
So like it's a part where it can,
It's
again,
meaty.
again, I don't know how many times I have to tell you people that I'm not a doctor.
So many
I don't know
people.
how many episodes I have to say it before it sinks in. However, you just have to assume, right? Because there's no way to know for sure that if you put it in your leg or your ass cheek, that it would disperse somehow into your bloodstream. Again, I can't stress how much I am not a doctor.
We don't
But
know
yeah,
anything. We know nothing.
yeah. So that's
We're
good.
Jon Snows,
Yeah,
okay?
for the
For the Game of
HBO
Thrones.
show fans, we are also we're Jon Snows in this regard. So which makes sense, and given the setting that we're in, also with the snows and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. It was just yeah. I'm glad that we again,
I'm glad that I'm not a doctor. That's all I'll
no, I
say.
would want to be a doctor in this post-apocalyptic world. First of all, you'd be so useful forever at wherever you go.
You
And
think
two,
so? But Kathleen just straight up killed her doctor.
well, yes, there is
She was
that.
like, "No, I don't care."
Well, yeah, I mean, she was just blinded by everything, and
That's
we
true.
we don't have to get into that. But so, all right, Ellie is so afraid for so many different reasons here, but mostly because it shifts in this moment after she gets the medicine because it went from fearful of Joel dying,
Mm,
of not knowing what to do next, of starving to death.
sure.
So many layers of fear, but now there's this added hope that's been brought into the situation because they have penicillin. So now she has this fear of fuck, I did what I could. I did everything that I could at the expense of almost being fucking killed by someone who knows what Joel did to someone from their group.
Hmm.
And like j- there's so many fucking layers of fear here that for her laying down, looking at her face, like I said, she laid down because body heat is essential. And second, or whatever order you want to put them in, listening to his heart and making
Sure.
sure that throughout the night he doesn't die.
Hmm.
And I just can't imagine that. Like, we get to a point where it's like, if and I hate to make it super serious, but I'm going to, but if you know someone with terminal illness and you watch that end of life event and the series of events that happens, and I went through this almost 3 years ago, you have uh, there is no more hope there
Hmm.
because the only thing that would change that is a miracle. And let's be fucking real here. mm, when was the last
Wow.
time any of us really witnessed a true miracle like something like that? I'll leave it at that. I don't want to sound too jaded, but my name's Jaded Vader for a reason. But I just there's that acceptance, and I feel like at some point Ellie was probably accepting of the fact that he might die. But now I have medicine. He might fucking live. Then what do we do?
Mm.
So it's just fear and fright and terror for this poor kid. And Bella Ramsey. We're going to talk about her a lot this episode too.
Okay. So
Mhm.
far, it's pretty David heavy.
It is David heavy. And here's another question for the doctors out there. So
Okay.
I googled.
Again, I cannot answer this.
I know, we know you can. So I googled penicillin and the turnaround times for penicillin to work according to the internet.
Okay.
Me, a non-medical professional,
Sure.
it states that the meds will start to work in 1 to 3 days for mild infections. Now, however, that's for the person being like taking the medicine to feel the side effects of getting better from their infection.
Right.
But penicillin does go to work immediately.
Sure.
But
Especially when it is
yeah.
injected directly into the spot where it needs to work. There's less travel time. It just goes
Yeah.
right to work.
Yeah, just like
It doesn't have to it doesn't have to commute, as it were, if
Yeah.
I may use common parlance.
Just goes right where all the white blood cells are already headed. So
Correct.
yeah. I get it.
Catches a ride.
It was interesting because of what happens and what Joel has to force himself to do by the end of the episode. I was like, is this even possible? With 2 injections.
There are a lot of things that, again, a lot of variables here.
Yeah.
She gave him what, in my estimate, is so much penicillin. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had a shot of that much stuff ever.
Yeah.
Really. Like, I looked at like the vaccine or when I was young and I had those, like, you know, all the MMR type stuff. And like, I cannot remember a needle that full of liquid coming anywhere close to me.
No.
It's usually just like the tiniest fraction of the syringe is full, and they're like, "This'll do." Bloop. I guess like, "Here's your morphine." Bloop, and I'm gone. Like I'm on another planet immediately. And so like I just looked at that. I was like, can you kill someone with penicillin? I don't know. Has she done more harm than good?
I don't know. Yeah. Can
Again,
you?
doctors, let us know. That looked to me to be approximately 3,600 cc's of penicillin. I do not even know what 1 cc is, but that looked like a lot of them.
Isn't it cubic centimeter? CC?
Give me an estimate. Why would it be cubic centimeter for liquid? We don't measure liquid with the
Cut
air.
that part.
No, we're leaving that. Well, we don't.
Hold on.
It's cubic.
I'm
It
Googling.
can't be cubic. That's the thing, right?
What
does
CC mean?
Centrifugal calculation.
This episode's a hot fucking mess.
Calorie counter. What does it mean?
It is cubic centimeter. I was right.
Oh, okay. Look, hey,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I have to say it.
I've watched a lot of ER and shit.
That's fair enough. All right. I don't know why we would measure liquid in centimeters, but hey, look, I don't know why we do a lot of things. So
yeah. Anyway,
it just seems like a whole lot of liquid that went in. A lot of penicillin. That's all.
Yes, but
let us know.
But it worked.
It did.
Thankfully.
It did.
Yeah.
That was just that was one of 2 shots of the same amount of penicillin both times. It's so much penicillin.
Please let us know.
Spoilers for the episode. Joel is now immune to cordyceps because his blood has been replaced with pure penicillin.
Oh my god. All right, go ahead. Isn't penicillin made from mold too?
Look, I don't want to get into this discussion.
But that would be interesting because of CBI.
Yes. It's not. Mold feels like the wrong term. Maybe it is. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like I get it. Like, yes, I believe it is.
It's
but
some sort of fungus or growth or something like that.
Yeah.
Here we go. Alexander Fleming
Of
famously
course.
discovered the first antibiotic, penicillin, in 1928 while working at St. Mary's Hospital. That's interesting. Medical school, which is now part of the Imperial College, London. The antibiotic was produced by a mold in the genus Penicillium and
Yeah.
accidentally started growing in a petri dish. It's fucking made from mold. How fucking great is that?
The
This
only
show
thing that
and
can
now St. Mary's.
shh, don't shh, shh,
No, they read that on the board
shh, shh.
in the at UEC.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, this show, this story.
Uh, so it was invented by John Penicillin. Got it.
No,
Uh,
Alexander Fleming.
I know. Um, that's yeah. Okay. The only thing that could fight fungus is mold. They are distinct entities. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
You are not immune. Also, if you have penicillin, that does not. No, that's not true. I just want to throw that out there. Also, I made
Uh-huh.
that up. We got you, uh,
We
Jonathan
got him.
Frakes. Jonathan Frakes meme. It's a fabrication. We made it up. We got you. All
Yeah,
right,
it's not true.
let's talk about David's cult. Still the same day. All right, lots happened today so far. Still the same day. More snow, more wintry wind. We see a stew being prepared by Jackie wrote a raggedly looking.
I'm
How dare you? It's just this man's clothing. How dare you? A woman enters with 5 large cans of tomato sauce. Another raggedly looking man enters with a tub of fresh red meat. She asks what it is. He hesitates before saying, venison. She doesn't believe him. This is the wife of the man who was killed. She scoops up the chunks of meat and puts it into this large pot. They got a stew going. People fill their bowls with the stew in preparation for dinner. Just then, David and James return, dragging the stag in with them. David simply says, big one, with a gross smile on his face. His dumb face. Sorry.
Bleh.
No one is smiling back at him, though, James included. He just nods before addressing a rumor about the girl who took Alex from us. And not to worry, because he will be leading a hunting party in the morning to track her down. Won't be hard with all the snow, is the explanation for why. Won't be hard. They'll bring the man to justice. Just then, the daughter speaks up and says, the daughter from earlier, the one who was crying, says, they should kill him. They should kill both of them. David approaches her as everyone watches the scene unfold. He removes a glove and backhands her so hard that she falls out of her seat onto the floor. So David, if you up until this point, if you were not convinced about who David was, he's just made it very clear. David kneels and extends a hand, and she accepts it. She sits back at the table and talks of how he says, she still and will always have a father, and she will show him respect when he's speaking, which is just an uber creepy thing to say. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The mother, who is sitting right there, also just watches and does nothing. The mother brings a full plate of food to David, right? He gets the most. That was one of the things I feel like I try not to go into we have a Discord for Wayfaring where many of our lovely people who review us and we're talking about this kind of stuff where like David's portion is easily 4 to 5 times larger than everyone else's. He gets a ridiculous amount of food. They all sit, they pray, a blessing for the food. It's very somber, right? They're all kind of reciting this prayer together. Grace, I guess. Utensils hit the bowls as soon as everyone stops. Everyone starts racing to eat. Joyce struggles with that first bite. She is not as fast as the others.
Yeah.
James does as well because he knows. We know it's not venison because the buck just came in the front door. David takes his time and he eats and chews slowly and savors it, and it is not fun. No.
Yeah.
Let's
I
talk.
got the heebie-jeebies while you were talking earlier, and I was like, "Ugh, I can't."
David.
So yeah, we know that the meat is, for lack of a better word, long pig, and the horror of that. So,
Aren't we? I don't know.
aren't we
This is the
aren't
whole
we what?
episode. This is the whole episode of me admitting, are we red meat?
Um, I don't know because we're closest to pig,
Right. I thought that. So again,
which
I thought we were the other white meat.
yeah, Jesus.
If you remember the ad from our youth, you have chicken or whatever, and then pork was the other white meat. And I
Mhm.
believe that human beings are the other white meat.
Yeah.
So, which is why we're also called long pig, or if you're a fan of Hannibal, uh, either the book or the show or the movies, you would
Mhm.
also pick up on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we look
I don't
like
know.
that, but either way, it was very disturbing to see.
Yes, it was. It and the fact that she knew she had to have known that that was her husband, she was just scooping up and putting in a fucking I gotta move on. So, I the interesting thing that they did here with, cinematography and, saying things without saying things,
Yeah.
whatever the expression is, but seeing the "When we are in need, he shall provide" banner again right before David enters the hall is a simple it's an extremely simple way to show how fucking psychotic David is and
Hmm.
ultimately turns out to be. That he, in essence, considers himself to be God, but not really, because as we learn later, he considers himself to be a part of the infection and spreads out and around
Mm.
amongst the people, the earth, and so on and so forth. And again, we're going to talk more extensively about that at that moment. But that clip of he shall provide, and then David enters with a deer food,
Yeah.
knowing what was in the bowl. I almost can't find the correct words to express how deeply disturbing that is on so many levels, on so many
Yeah.
from religion, from humanity, from inhumane behavior. I mean, he even that big ass smile. Oh God, I would. Oh, oh, yeah. The last comment I have is that smug ass expression. I could
Yeah.
not fucking wait to see what he to because I knew it was coming.
Well, yeah. That's
We'll get to that.
I feel like whenever you have a whenever there is a sign prominent in the scene of
Mhm,
anything, you
mhm,
should always take a look at how they are framing your characters around said sign.
mhm.
It's just a great it's a great shorthand for character work, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to. We are already slowly coming to understand that David is
Oof.
something of a bad person, to put it lightly. The sign puts it into a perspective that says, "Oh, this is a person with with a god complex,"
Mhm,
right? Not he believes himself through two things. He shall provide, he being David, literally providing,
mhm.
right? And then also the fact that he sits at this table, considers everyone here to be his children, right?
Well,
And
we're gonna get to that in the next.
yeah,
Yeah,
and has portions far larger than everybody else. Also, clearly, no problem eating people.
none.
Zero qualms. He's like, mm.
Yeah, just so it makes you wonder how long that's been happening. But so I want to talk about the wrath of the preacher.
Hmm.
This was not a teachable moment. This is another polarization between Joel and David's characters, and the reason I bring this up is because years ago, and apparently it was said again on the official podcast, but I don't know that if that's verified.
Uh-oh.
Because I again not listening till we're
We're
done. But
skipping. We're skipping. Yeah.
Troy Troy said a really shitty thing years ago that pretty much the entire world disagrees with him about, and yet he keeps bringing it up. And he, in essence, says that there's not too much of a difference between Joel and David. Exactly. It's fucking laughable. And it pisses me
Huh.
off. It really pisses me off because when you look at David, and we're taking such a close look at him, but David considers himself the quote unquote father of all, which
Sure.
in religion is God.
Sure.
That is God, the Father. And then, I mean, we come from a Catholic background where we had priests and we would call them Father so and so.
Yeah.
And it's just this kind of trickle down dad thing happening in religion. But it's not in it's not in the fatherly sense of a man who has children. It's
Right.
in the it's in every other sense, essentially, but David's taken that and he's bastardized and perverted it, and he's holding it above these people.
Mhm.
So, in doing so, these people are hostage. This is
Sure.
not like a following a group of people following a leader. This is a hostage situation, and I feel like in the conversation he had with Ellie by the campfire, this is something that was premeditated all along. I think he it took him 20 years to get to this point,
Yeah.
and it's been sustaining him, and people, when they get weak and they die or they get sick and they die, well, I mean, anyway, I don't know how that works, but he's just been eating them and then replacing them by bringing in children to do God fucking knows what. Uh the actual God, not David God. And
Yeah.
so all these years he's been moving across the country, earning people's trust
Mhm.
while isolating them and forcing them into a geographic location that is literally known to have harsh, terrible winters. So now, in essence, these people that have watched him bring people along and save them and move through the country together, save them from raiders, save them from starvation, save them from themselves or illness or drought, hunger, whatever. He has basically funneled them into this perfect situation of they all rely on me
Mm.
because they have nothing else.
Sure.
This is a level of intelligence to deviant controlling behavior that is almost borderline omniscient. And I don't
Mm.
know, I'm not saying it wouldn't be possible. I just don't know how well it would work.
Look, I don't know how far removed the average age of the people here removed from the outbreak day. They look like they might have been roughly David's age, maybe some younger, some weren't born yet. Obviously, there were kids there. It's a wide variety of people, is what I'll say.
Mhm,
Historically, religion has been used. Again, I'm only basing this off of history. I mean no offense, to religions or anything, but it is a means of control to
mhm,
some degree,
mhm.
and a very effective one. You can mobilize armies based on belief, right?
Yes.
And so it doesn't shock me that somebody would take advantage of that, right? Um, and we don't know the details of David's teaching background, but
Mhm,
let's just say he taught at a Catholic school, right? There is a rigor there,
mhm.
and there is a Catholic school has a tempo to it.
Yes.
You begin each morning with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, and you do this, and then there's theology and right? And you could just kind of, I could see how somebody would see that, oh, this works. I
Yeah.
could just take this and turn some dials, and
Mhm.
now it'll work for me, right?
To serve my purposes, not to
Exactly.
serve the Lord, to serve me.
I want to. There are some similarities with this in this episode
Mhm.
to, and I don't, just like like very high level spoilers for it. The movie, The Book of Eli. Cannibalism being one,
Mhm.
uh, and two. I'm gonna. I'm gonna spoil. I skip ahead 2 minutes, just or not even like 90 seconds. The if you don't want to hear this, Gary Oldman's character in the Book of Eli, the titular book that this character is looking for is the Bible,
Mhm.
because he believes that if he has the Bible, he will be able to control everyone in this town
Yeah.
through faith. And I found that to be so such a remarkably devious, like it flies in the face of the message of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
But that's clearly a person who knew, oh, that worked, right? And David
Yes.
seems just like that guy.
Mhm.
He's like, that worked. Why would I try to why reinvent the wheel? The blueprint is literally right here.
Yeah.
And so that is a long-winded way of saying, like, you are correct, 100% premeditated. The guy knew what he was doing.
Yes. But where I'm talking about the omniscient part of the premeditation is that he had this goal in mind
Yeah,
from the begin like, he admitted, "I found religion in the end of the world." And it
yeah.
wasn't because he sought faith or purpose or something bigger than himself to serve. It was because that formula worked.
Oh yeah,
And he took that formula and basically expanded it. a- excuse me, and moved his way across the country, gathering up his quote unquote flock because he considers himself to be this shepherd like
yeah.
Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
and brings these people along, isolates them, cuts them off, starves them, keeps them in poverty. I mean, it looks like he's clean shaven.
Yeah.
His hair is cut short. He is clean. His clothes are clean. Look at everyone around him.
Mhm.
Everyone serves him, not
Yeah.
God. So it shows you how deeply lost like the entire message of, like you said, of the Bible, of scripture, and how badly he's bastardized it. But it's such a next level evil to premeditate every single step of the way, and however that sustains or however that needs to be sustained, by killing people and eating them, by sacrificing children, by um doing god knows what to children.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. They
That's
took David from the game and they made him sinister, like
yeah.
absolute sinister.
That's I feel like to put a bow on the whole thing is he found religion insofar as you find a thing that you can use to exploit. That
Yeah.
is finding religion, right?
Mm.
And then he talks about the journey from Pittsburgh to here and that lost people along the way. It's like, well, did you lose them or did you just take along the people that worked the best under your control, right?
Yes.
It seems very likely that only the people he felt he was able to control were the people that made it all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And that continues to remain true. Now,
Yeah.
like someone like James feels a little bit more like a free agent,
Mhm.
not or allowed to operate a little bit freely.
Mhm.
But it's like David still keeps him in check. Like, I'm gonna need you, and like
Yeah.
and the unspoken part of that is like, I'm going to need your faith on this one is like, because if you don't believe anymore, dot, dot, dot,
Yeah.
you'll be on the dinner table tomorrow.
Exactly.
Or, so that's that, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And
It's literal craziness.
it is. It's insanity. You're right. It's absolute madness. And they took they did. They took a character that was rotten to the core and then somehow made him worse.
You rotten bastard.
Yeah. All right. But thank you for coming. This episode's all over the place. But so we're back with Joel and Ellie. It is the next morning, and we see a shot outside of the house, and then Ellie is sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing her eyes as she presumably wakes up. Joel is still sleeping, and she leans over and touches his forehead again and reacts as though there hasn't been much of a change throughout the night, but he is still alive, so that's good. She checks his wound again here, and it looks worse. I think his abdomen looked even more distended in one shot. and she injects another needleful of meds of penicillin into that stitched area. And she stares at it a moment, and then the garage door raises. We're now outside. So she has made the decision. She needs to go. And Ellie grabs Snow and fills a bucket for Callus. Again, I've named the horse Callus from the game, who drinks it because we can assume that this horse has not had any food for days now. And Ellie inspects her surroundings while she is out there, but then there's a murder of carrion birds that trips her attention, that grabs her attention. I don't know what I was going for there. But she goes to inspect and she sneaks alongside the fences of the various houses, and then she spots men walking in the center of the street up out ahead of her.
Mm.
And then it cuts to David, and he says for his group to stay alert, that if the man isn't dead already, he is dangerous. And then James asks about the girl. What's the plan, essentially? And David says definitively to James and the rest of the group, she is going back with them. James questions David's mercy here, quote unquote, his mercy, by saying it's just one more mouth to feed, that they can let her go. And David says she will die if they leave her out here. But James counters with maybe it's God's will then. If that's to be, it's to be. David stops, and they all stop at this, and he stares James down until James literally submits by gazing down at the ground. And they continue to walk on afterwards, after that sublimation has happened.
Mm.
And Ellie races back down the stairs into the house, or into the house, back down the stairs to try and wake Joel, to warn him to get help, both, whatever. Joel is still pretty sweaty, still pretty pale. And she kind of grabs his shoulders and bangs on them just a little bit, telling him to wake the fuck up, to get up. And then she runs and grabs a hunting knife, places it into his right hand. And his eyes are partially open and closing here. It's not great, but it's all that Joel can do. And Ellie tells him that there are men coming, and if any of them make it to him, to kill them, that she's going to lead them away, but she basically it reinforces to not fall asleep before she races off. Now, once she's upstairs, she moves a large cabinet in front of the blackened, burned looking basement door. And, excuse me, at this, he moves a bit and we hear her dragging the heavy furniture, but he doesn't do much more than that. He's just kind of listening from down below. Now we are once again outside, and Ellie yanks down the garage door, and she's not being quiet about this whatsoever. And she gets on Callus and rides off. And we see David and his men walking in the center of the street now. They're much closer. And Ellie comes up behind them, though, and yells for their attention, then pops off 2 rounds just at them, hoping one hits, or
Yeah.
both. And they all kind of just, spread out and sort of hit the ground, and then Ellie takes off, and David yells alive, which is of course an order to keep Ellie alive. James races off to cut her off, so basically cuts through the houses to come, because he knows she's going to come around and out the other side. He hops fences, and then he steadies himself by a tree, and he fires one shot at Callus, and Ellie comes into view as Ellie comes into view, excuse me, and kills the horse instantly. And he hollers that he, quote, got her. And Ellie is thrown and dazed. There's a good sized knock to the right of her, to the right side of her head. James and his men stand above her, and the men, not his men, excuse me. And one of them tells James to, quote, do it. And this, of course, means to kill Ellie. And James empties the spent shell and is about to fire when we hear a shot from behind the man. And of course, this is David, and it's an imminent threat to to James and everyone else. And everything stops in this moment, and they all watch as David approaches. Ellie is knocked out on the ground now, and David kneels and checks her pulse to affirm that she is alive, and then turns back to James, who, of course, looks away. And he orders 2 of his men with him to take Ellie and the horse back to town, and the rest of them are ordered to go door to door in search of Joel. If they're so hungry for vengeance, then to have at it, essentially. We're going to talk about that shortly. But David lifts Ellie and carries her in his arms, looking at her in silence. And the remainder of the men spread out, going house to house. And one enters Joel and Ellie's latest hideout. And he moves slowly, his rifle raised the entire time, as he inspects the home. And he notices a cabinet positioned in the front of the basement door, or a door, and moves it. And Joel hears the heavy footsteps from below and somehow knows that this is not Ellie. He opens his eyes, and he's mostly alert now, and moves as the cabinet is moved. So the man comes down to find an empty mattress with a bloody circle on it, and he rounds the area, the basement area and steps, but it doesn't last too long. The search doesn't last too long before Joel stabs him in his throat and hangs on until the man bleeds out and dies. And Joel's breathing is still terrible. He's actually wheezing at this point, but
Mhm.
he did it. He done did it. And after, he takes a few seconds before rolling himself over and beginning to crawl.
Mm.
Long section is long, but Joel is still not looking good for the third time in a row. But the desperation is evident in Ellie as she sits beside him before putting the knife in his hand, and continues to stare and contemplate, excuse me. They need food. Ah! They need food. The horse needs food. They're in dire straits, and he is still out of it.
Mhm.
I think the hope, what is Ted Lasso? They talked
It's
about
the
it's the
hope that
hope that
kills you.
kills you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the hope that she had last night dwindled a little bit by morning, and the time that she took to think about it probably did her absolutely no favors.
Yeah.
So it was good for her to just basically need to abruptly leave and get into action. And this, of course, works out for Joel, not so much Ellie in the immediate future, but Joel because it wakes him up essentially.
Yeah.
So um that moment I think was really well done by Bella Ramsey as she just kind of sits there and looks back and just assesses the situation. She probably hasn't slept at all. She's rubbing her eyes, like just dead tired and starving.
Mhm.
And it's sad. It's just a very sad situation to see this young girl going through that. But so we've been talking about this. David's control over these men is indicative of this long history that we've been speculating at. And it just really must have been. I wrote one nightmare after the next, but I don't think that that's necessarily true because you can't control people if you constantly oppress them. It has to be it's like the boiling pot theory.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. You can't just throw what is he? It's a frog, right? You can't just throw a frog into a boiling pot and not expect it to jump right the fuck out. Like
Right.
if conditions are terrible and uninhabitable and unsurvivable, people are going to bounce.
Mhm.
But if you put them in temperate water and then slowly heat it up over time and
Right.
they don't really realize what's happening, that's exactly what David has done here.
Yes.
So I don't think it's been one nightmare after the next. I think it's just been a small series of events that have slowly declined the welfare of the people in his charge,
Mhm.
and now they're stuck.
Yeah. I
But
We've
yeah.
seen how it this always kind of ends the same way, right? It's how it
Mhm.
ended in Kansas City eventually,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they just Fedra kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and push, and then now Fedra's dead, right?
Mhm.
And then the same thing with Kathleen, pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and now they're dead, right?
Mhm.
Even in religion, historically, you can push people to a point, but then you'll have Martin Luther come along and be like, look, I got 95 reasons why I don't like what's going on here in the church.
Yeah. Just nail
So
these.
again, that is this had Ellie and Joel not come along to this community,
Mhm.
this would have worked itself out eventually.
Sure.
But as it stands right now, we are in, like, let's say the second act of David controlling these people. We haven't gotten to the heroic final acts.
Mm.
That actually will happen at the end of this episode. But yeah,
Mhm.
um, that's always interesting to see. It's like without doing much,
Yeah.
this man exerts a lot of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they're literally starving and he wants to bring another person into their midst. And James is like, it's one more mouth to feed.
Yeah.
And I hate to fucking go there, and we will continue to go there as the episode just as the episode goes there.
Right.
But when he has that conversation with Ellie in the cage, in her cage, he's alluding to her being his bride, his child bride,
Hmm.
which means children, more mouths to feed, more stress, more dire straits, more horrors for everyone.
Yeah.
And these people understand that, and James came very close to killing Ellie, probably a mercy for Ellie because he knows David.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the timing did not work out, but it's like they still fucking follow him knowing that this is just, "What are you doing, dude? Like, we are dying and you're
Yeah.
eating us, and you're gonna bring someone else in because you're a selfish, disgusting piece of shit pedophile."
I mean, he like as we have seen in this world already, the people at the top want to make it better for themselves,
Only.
right?
Yeah,
Only.
only.
So it does
Mhm,
not, you know,
mhm.
it does not filter down.
No,
So
no.
that's unfortunate, but
Yeah,
that is the reality of the situation that these people are in. They really have no say in the matter.
yeah. Because 'cause they're desperate.
Right.
Desperate measures, that's literally what it is, and unlike the rebellion, like Kathleen's rebellion in Kansas City from 20 years of Fedra oppressing everyone
Hmm.
and abusing and raping and murdering and torturing everyone, they rose up, but they weren't desperate. They were angry. I think there's a difference there because those people still had food,
Right.
medicine, like access to doctors or facility. Like they were able to have children, healthy, So while they were still being enduring horrors, they weren't desperate,
Yeah.
which I think is just that added layer. And that's why David is the ultimate fucking villain in part 1. But anyway,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
keep them weak, keep them
Yeah.
powerless,
Mhm.
keep them physically weak, right?
Yeah.
That
It's
that's
it's
also, yeah.
it's a horrible exploitation of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Mhm. So Ellie's heart Ellie girl? Ellie's heart was in the right place, but the lady balls on Miss Thing from coming up behind them on a horse and then firing into the group to lead them away while all of them had rifles. That was a brazen little move right there. But and it does not work out for her.
It's true. I mean, hey, you gotta try. You gotta
Yeah.
try, you know?
What have we just been talking about? That's desperation.
Sure, but a different kind.
A different kind.
It's
She was
it's all
yeah.
about the intention behind it. It was coming from a place of trying to help rather than to um uh despite
Mhm.
the potential of harm coming to her versus David
Yeah.
not helping
Yeah.
for the potential of harm coming to his people.
Mhm.
So, again,
Yep.
we get more mirrors, more mirrors.
More yeah. But I cannot stress this enough that Joel and David are not the same fucking person. And to
It's
go
a
back
weird hill.
yeah,
It's a weird hill to die on, Troy. I just
it's weird. It's a
that
strange thing.
sure. If anything, it's even more magnified as incorrect by how they are presented in the show
For sure.
versus the game,
Yeah.
which I couldn't even. I found it as that's an unlikely statement for game Joel and game
Yeah.
David. It's far less likely and far more unhinged to try to compare
It is.
compare the show versions.
It
It's
really
it's bizarre.
it is bizarre. I think that's the perfect word. Please stop, Troy. We're all of us, the whole world who is involved with The Last of Us, please stop.
Signed, all
Signed,
of us.
The Last of Us fans. So, David talking of vengeance as the reason James and the others wanted to kill Ellie, but it wasn't only that. So, it was their dire straits, this desperation we're mentioning, the fact that they are eating their own people more than just, of course, more than just the man that Joel killed, as
Hmm.
we come to learn shortly, is reason enough for these men and James to kill Ellie. But David doesn't use that as the reason for their vengeance or for them wanting her to die. So he's
Yeah,
not saying, I don't want you to kill her because she is another mouth to feed. We're desperate. We're hungry. He's saying, I don't want you to kill her out of vengeance for what the older man that she's traveling with did.
sure.
And again, it's more manipulation. It's I'm
It's
not gonna.
semantics.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's semantics, but it's intelligent semantics,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's so fast with it that I hate this guy. And
Mission accomplished.
yes, just oh. Next talking point, David carrying Ellie in his arms. So this is similar, of course, to Joel carrying Sarah in the beginning in episode 1, and it will be similar to other things that I cannot talk about.
Other things in places with people at certain times.
Yes.
Adverb.
Yes. And moving on, I just wanted to make note of that because I can't not mention it.
Fair.
Joel knowing the difference in the sounds above him in the house, and knowing that it's not Ellie. I thought that was
That
pretty remarkable.
that was listen mode. He enabled listen mode.
Craig.
Game fans.
Yeah, game
You're
fan.
the
So
real ones.
yeah. Quick little funny story about that. When the show was first in production, Craig Mazin, who of course is the showrunner, co-showrunner with Neil Druckmann, uh, replied to me on Twitter because I said we need to see Joel in his listen mode at some point, which is a video game ass shit. It's a combat tactic where you can like crouch and listen, and Joel can hear into other rooms and far off places if there's infected or hunters or whatever around.
It's sonar. It's human
It's
sonar, like a
human.
bat.
It really is. So of course, video game ass shit. But
Yeah.
I tweeted to Craig Mazin back when he was active on Twitter 2 years ago or whatever, and he actually replied to me and he was like, "Oh, we have a whole episode dedicated to Joel in listen mode."
All right.
I was like, "Oh my god." Yeah, it was
It's fun.
wonderful. So, yes, it really was in essence Joel's listen mode from the game.
Yeah.
But he heard her, like he was more conscious than not as she exited the house and heard her uh enough to know the cadence and her pace as she goes up the steps, shuts the door, moves the cabinet around. And I think that this is a really good show of his survival tactics of 20 years fighting the good, bad, and the ugly fight,
Sure.
kicking into gear to save his own life in that moment. Yes, but more so and more importantly, hers. Because now it's like, oh, no, if they're in here with me, then that means they're out there with her. There are more out there with her. So let's go. Let's go. Little TV ass shit comment.
All right. I mean, all
And
right. I mean,
I know. I
okay.
said this on as we watched the show. The circle of blood on the mattress.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
It's a pool of blood.
He
A little pool of
but he
blood.
wasn't stabbed like in
Uh-huh.
the game he was impaled through and through. So he
Sure.
had a hole in his back just as he had a hole in his gut.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was off the mattress, it made sense to have this perfect round circular patch of blood.
Yeah.
Not perfect, obviously. But
It's a perfect circle. It's
but
unbelievable.
yeah, why in the game? I mean, you could say, all right, so it bled down the side of him,
Mm-hmm.
but then that would be
Hmm.
more of a I'm just picking anyway.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a weird hill to die on.
It's not I'm not dying on it. I'm just
Either
nitpicking.
either it's a cool Easter egg for video game people,
Yeah,
possible,
which I would love.
or they did the hardcore research and they found that would happen. There's no TV.
I'm gonna
They
like run an
consulted
experiment.
they consulted many doctors and they drew the conclusion that that's what would happen, and then they
Maybe.
went with it. It's either one of those two things,
Mm,
potentially a mixture of both.
mm. I could see. All right, I can kind of undo my argument here by saying
Undone.
he he as she was dragging him back to the house,
Yeah.
he would just continue to be bleeding out before he was stitched up, and the blood rolls down to his back, saturates his clothing and his jacket, thus leaving
Thusly,
blood stains in that area. And then when she puts him on the bed.
hithertofore.
Anyway, all right. I just listen, we're a detail show. I have to work this stuff out. So thank you guys for coming along.
Right.
Yes.
Let us know. Those of you who have been impaled versus stabbed and then laid on a bare mattress in a dirty basement in the
Mhm.
apocalypse, write in, let us know.
Please. So, quick, guys, if you're watching this, you'll notice that the light has changed. So, we
What?
had to take a couple hours, literally about a 2.5 hour break in between the recording to, you know, do some parenting duties, have some dinner, watch Pedro Pascal's performance, really, on Hot
Performance.
Ones with, what was it? First We Feast, which was amazing. So, but we're back now. And, it's dark outside, so it's a little
I
bit
feel like
darker in the room.
this is really only an announcement for the people who watch the video because
Yeah.
when you're editing the audio of this, it's literally no, it doesn't matter. Time is not
Well, I'm
changed.
cutting this from the audio
Yeah,
because it
fair
won't.
enough.
Yeah.
You just cut the whole beginning of the second half here.
Yeah.
Just adjust my camera. Is that better? I'm straighter now. Okay, perfect. All right, where were
Alright.
we?
It's all
Let me
you.
just scroll through my 5,000 word dossier that Jack provides me every week here. Oh, we're at the holding cell. Great.
Yes.
We have another snowy landscape shot of the residential area, just driving home how cold and oppressive this environment is. Ellie laying asleep on a tile floor behind a fence, all fenced in. She wakes. David speaks here, telling her of his worry that she might not wake up. She's groggy, and her first words are, "Let me out." That's the goal, David says, then asks if she's hungry. Ellie wants to know why she's in a cage. It's clear she's a very dangerous person and he's afraid of her. David being a little, you know,
Mm,
protective of his own interests here. He's like, I got to put you in a cage. The others want to kill her for all that's happened. And he watches her as she wakes. She sits up now and then asks again if she heard him. And he says that he stopped them. He stopped them from killing her. She says, fuck you and eat shit, which is great, Ellie. Great, Ellie. She refuses to share her name when prompted again. He stands and digs into how she can't survive on her own and he will protect her.
mm,
She goes to the farther side of the fence and kind of just curls up, like in a very protective way. Ellie says she isn't on her own. David breathes here and then says, "Oh, right, your friend,"
mm,
and asks about how he's doing. That he could see how much she cares about him and that it hurts her to see him hurting.
mm,
But she needs to face reality that that part of her life is over now, which is bleh.
mm,
uh so David to her represents a beginning and she needs to find a way to trust him, otherwise she is alone.
mm.
Ellie moves basically as far away from him as she can get during any point of this conversation. She's opposite him all the time, holding on to herself as she begins to process the reality of the situation. So this is a part unto itself we can talk about for a while, I think.
Yeah, some of where we, like, separate scenes and where we don't separate scenes is was kind of left to my discretion, but there was a cut after this moment, so I
Yeah.
just because of the creepiness of this and a lot that happened, I think it's still important to stop and assess, as it were. But going back to the beginning of this episode when we talked about like grooming and how he tried to diffuse a situation, then complimented her, David continues his tactics here. And he's even like offering, like submitting himself in a way that we've seen with like James, for example.
Hmm.
And this is all under the guise of protection and community and beginnings
Yeah.
by basically saying, like, I'm afraid of you. He's not fucking afraid of her. He just wants her to believe that, to have this false sense of security, this false sense of control, that this situation is under control for her, but it's not. It's
Hmm.
all just it's all part of the plan essentially for David.
Did you just Joker David?
I did. I which
That's an
I'm
insult to the
sorry. It
Joker.
is an insult to the Joker. I'm so sorry. But I think by this point Ellie knows better, and her way of conveying that, and Bella Ramsey's way of conveying that to us, the audience, is this rabid, caged animal body language. Even, she's groggy when she's coming to, and then as soon as they're having this conversation, she backs up and just kind of seals into herself, but her hair is very wild and messy, and
Mhm.
she kinda tilts her head just kinda like, you know, it's very it's disturbing to see Ellie like that, and I think that that's the point, but at the same time, while she is afraid, she knows now to be afraid.
Yeah.
But what she will do with that and how she speaks and reacts, still entirely unpredictable because that's Ellie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's still Ellie, but
Mhm.
it's now kind of feral Ellie. It's
Yeah.
like one layer removed from who we have known for the past few episodes.
Yeah, it kinda goes back to what I mentioned about her in the beginning of the series, in episode 1 and 2. I was like, she's very rabid
Yeah.
and feral. Like, she's not who I expected going
Mhm.
into this, and I think that that kind of ebbed a bit on the journey with Joel, and then all of the moments of loss and Henry and Sam and Taz, and it kind of subdued that side to her because she felt safe with Joel. She was safe with Joel. She is, he's just
Yeah.
not present. But now that that's well, for us paused, but for her, big giant question mark.
Yeah.
She's kind of slipping back into that like, yeah, feral nature.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So this is another part that I think Ellie really did well in picking up on, and that feeds into the next scene, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about it then. But the way that David brings Joel into this situation starts to like put more focus on the real horror of David's creepy side for Ellie. We've been talking about it this whole time,
Sure.
but she's seeing it, and he's reading into the relationship that Ellie shares with Joel in a very sinister, sick way. And
Mhm.
this is both intentional and I would probably say unintentional on his part because he doesn't really know for sure, but he can guess that it's a healthy partnership, whatever this is. Like, this is, uh, he doesn't know that Joel is not her biological father.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that, so he's just assuming this is a father-daughter relationship, but he's like, he has this entire time corrupting and perverting it, and it's trying to basically like the big one of the newest memes, it's like scammer got scammed kind of thing. Like, he's trying to move her thinking of Joel and her opinion and view of Joel to this perverted s view, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
And just be like, "Well, that one is done, but now I'm here, and I'll take good care of you." And it's just so fucked up that he's rolling Joel into this situation
Yeah.
because this is different from the game, but, like, he's talking about how he'll care for her and how she's hurting over how Joel is hurting, and she's alone right now and has to fight and fend for herself, and Joel is the past and David is the future, and he always refers to Joel as her friend.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna leave it there until the next section because then it'll really come to the realization. But
Sure.
fuck you, David.
Yeah, he's I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'll go ahead and say it. I don't think he's a good guy.
He's a terrible, terrible guy. He's a terrible human. He's about as bad as it gets. But
Yeah.
so the next section, we are with Joel, and the rest of David's remaining men who stayed behind to find, quote, the man are still searching. They creep along the fence and stop when hearing shuffling sounds. This is one man in particular, of course, and he calls
Mhm.
out for someone named Timothy and then spots somebody down, lying face down on the ground, still moving a bit, but down. And
Mhm.
as he goes over to his friend, I don't know, his crew member.
Saying friend a lot here.
Yeah. Oh, okay, but justified in that one. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Joel comes into focus and knocks the guy out with the butt of his rifle. And next we find Joel torturing one of the men who's now duct taped to a chair. And Joel beats him first and then stabs his Bowie knife into the man's kneecap. And this is all in a threatening measure. It's not even a threatening measure. It's all a threat to find the girl, and he says that he will pop his goddamn kneecap off
Mm.
if he doesn't find out where. And so this man who's tied up calls for his friend, but Joel shuts that down pretty quickly. Like, he can't fucking help you. What the fuck is he gonna do?
Yeah.
And Joel learns from this guy that Ellie is still alive and in a place called Silver Lake, which is not the name of the town, but rather the name of the resort. And
Mhm.
Joel screams to get more of this information from the man. But afterwards, Joel pulls out a map and tells the man, uh, and that's where we learn that it's a resort and not a town. And Joel sticks the knife handle, shoves the knife handle into the man's mouth so that he can point on the map to where Ellie is. And this is, of course, a tactic to gain the truth. It's a torture tactic.
Mhm. Mhm.
The man swears that he is not lying, and Joel stabs him and kills him. Marco, who we learn is the other man on the floor, cries out for his friend and curses Joel. And now he fights back and says he won't tell Joel shit because the other man told him what he needed to know, and then Joel killed him. So what's the fucking point in me telling you anything? But Joel doesn't care and says, I believe him, before swinging a pipe down onto the guy's head, thus killing him. And we cut to black very
What
quickly,
did he
sort of.
what did Joel say to the guy
I was
before?
quoting the
Okay.
game.
What did he say?
I believe him.
Okay. Arboretum? What did he say? Arboretum?
That works. That works too perfectly. Oh my god. So, this whole section is one of my favorites in the game. I am very happy that this torture sequence, sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm very happy that this torture
Mhm.
sequence made it into the show because, well, one, from me, the Joel person,
Sure.
um it was just I loved it, okay? I loved it. Period. Read into that information what you will.
Right.
But
I just thought it was great.
yeah,
I wouldn't change a thing.
but when it comes to, so yeah, these are implications of Joel's character that should not be missed, though.
Mhm.
So aside from the fact that I think it was just smoking hot in the game, and yeah, I said what I said, it was necessary in the show because it shows the extent to what he will do and go through for Ellie. And I think it was very important to have that in this penultimate episode.
Yeah. No, that all tracks. That all tracks.
Mhm.
Um I really like it is we've seen it now twice on the show. You know, you better point to the same place on the map, right? Like
Mhm.
how we approach this with the elderly couple versus how he's
Oh,
approaching it
yeah.
with these people. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this you know what? I don't actually even need the verification. I believe this guy. Boom, dead.
Yeah.
So versus like, I don't want to hurt these other people, you know, and he didn't. He really
Yeah.
was quite a gentleman, other than maybe stealing a rabbit, and well, that was Ellie, but you know, breaking into their
2
home.
rabbits. Damn it. 2.
She stole two, or she stole
She
one.
stole 1, but there were
Okay,
2.
that's what I said.
Sorry, I missed the stealing.
Are
I
you?
got
But are you sure there were two rabbits? Because it looked like three. It looked like
Alright, so
three
the
heads.
next it was 2 fucking rat. So the torture tactic is featured in both games, The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2. So if you'd like to hear us talk more about that, listen to the end where we discussed games. But actually, no, this isn't really necessarily a game spoiler. Um,
Okay, I
I,
mean, all right,
yeah,
all right.
I can't talk too much about.
Arboretum.
I can't talk too much about what happens in part 2, but um, like Andrew just brought up that moment with the Native American couple
Hmm.
living on the ranch alone, and
Yeah,
Joel did a similar thing with them, but to a much less severe degree.
right.
And I remember when
Live
we
and let
covered
live.
that, I was like, well, this will come around. So it came around.
Yeah.
And here it is. But in part 2, it also factors in a different way. But I can't even talk about that. So that's that.
Don't worry about it. As far as we know, there isn't a part two. It's fine.
Yeah,
As it relates to this show, it doesn't even exist yet. Don't worry about it.
sure.
Let's talk about Ellie some more, if you'll indulge me.
Hmm.
Ellie, when we next see her, is reaching for the light, or rather the window ledge. But hey, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light.
Reach for
She
the
is
light.
trying to get out of her cage using a bucket, which is probably what her bathroom is. It was the bathroom for her in this cage. But after she crouches by the fence to see if she can unscrew some of the bolts by hand, but then she sees something that stops her dead in her tracks. And at that same exact moment, David enters and passes food under the space at the bottom of the cage, like the cage door area.
Mm.
He sees she's frightened and silent and shaking. And he follows her eye line and sees what she sees, which is a severed human ear under a butcher block, which,
Mm.
you hate to see it.
Truly.
He swears, though, that this dinner that he's given her just now is venison. And Ellie asks if he's going to chop her up into little pieces. He says he'd rather not. David really wants to know her name. Like, he keeps pressing on the name thing.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment is called to the front now, and Ellie yells at him and kicks the food back. Okay. She's like, get the, just kicks this out, right? That he is eating people and he is a sick fuck. Two very true statements,
Yeah.
right? If there ever were any. David says, yes, there's only a few of us who know. Okay. So, in a way, he is absolving many of the people under his watch of
Sure.
crime, right? It really truly is. When he said that, it was one of the true things he said.
Mm-hmm.
That he would tell Ellie, he would have told Ellie that what was happening sooner or later. She calls him an animal, and he says, yeah, that's sort of the point.
Mm.
But it was a last resort, and it does shame him, which it does not.
Mm-mm.
He can't let his people starve. That's the lie he tells himself. We're editorializing here, but that's kind of what we do. His people love him, and he couldn't do that to them. He couldn't let them starve. Once again, David brings Joel into this as her friend.
Mm.
Joel took another man's life to defend Ellie. We defend the ones we love. And he says Ellie knew that. And he mentions that she sees a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when he looks at her, he is like reminded of himself, which is so creepy. So creepy. He calls her a natural leader, smart, loyal, and violent, which is interesting. The violent sparks something in Ellie, but I'm sure we'll touch on that. Ellie says he doesn't know anything about her. He says he responds by saying if he let her out and gave her a knife, she'd stick him in a second. It's just true.
Yeah.
That she has a violent heart, and he knows this to be true because he has a violent heart. Oh, isn't that sweet? And he struggled with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he gets to. When the world ended, he was actually shown the truth. So now he's getting all preachery, biblical type stuff. But it wasn't God that showed him. It was cordyceps. He then goes on to say, like, cordyceps isn't evil. It's fruitful. It feeds and protects its children. And it will be violent if necessary. And it loves too. And Ellie wonders why he's telling her all this. And David said it's because she can handle the truth. The others can handle it. They need God, heaven. They need a father. Again, he's putting himself on a pedestal. But Ellie has grown beyond that. David said he's a shepherd surrounded by sheep, and he needs an equal, a friend. Gross. Ellie asks about her. Ellie asks about her friend here, and David calls on her loyalty. Right? He again compliments. Creepy. David begins to suggest promises now that he will tell his people to stop hunting him, that his people will do what they tell him, what he tells them to do. And if Joel leaves them alone, that's that. We could put this whole mess behind us if Joel promises to leave us alone. They follow him, they'd follow us. So he's already building this future. He's suggesting far, far more sinister things about their relationship. He admits he needs help. David places his hand on the metal bar very gently. The bar, her door, says that she should consider what they could do together. They're strong and they could make the place perfect. Grow,
Stop.
spread out, do whatever they need for their people. Blech. Ellie understands the assignment here and then places her hand on the bar at first beside his.
Mhm.
Blech.
Stop
Sorry,
it!
I'm done. He covers her fingers with his palm. I won't make the sound again. And then she layers her hand on his. And this is getting, we're firmly in heebie jeebie town here. Ellie whispers, "Oh." And
Mm,
then she breaks the shit out of one of his fingers, and it's
fuck
so
yeah.
satisfying.
So good.
While he is distracted, she reaches for the keys on his belt, and in doing so, he grabs her, pulls her against the bars twice, like smashes her face against the bars twice.
Mhm,
He stands and calls Ellie the C word. I'm not trying to get flagged on YouTube here. You know what it is.
mhm,
David threatens what he might tell the followers now based on what just happened. Just like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll tell them that, you did it. We should kill you. We should eat you. But Ellie,
mhm,
being Ellie, tell them the little Ellie. Let me back up here.
mhm.
Ellie, being Ellie, says, tell them that Ellie is the little girl who broke your fucking finger.
So
She's
good.
bleeding from the face and the nose. And it was like, it was like a great,
Mhm,
very deep scream. Before David leaves the room, he says, how did you put it? Tiny little pieces? Then he leaves.
mm.
Ellie, her face bleeding, dips down as she fears what comes next. Whew.
Oh, that was honestly,
Creep
that
show.
was yeah, that was unsettling to write
Yeah,
because
gotta,
I'm like, I can't, like, skimp on the details now because we never have, but it felt bad writing it.
yeah, gotta, feels bad, man.
Yeah. But let's get into this. So learning that David and his cult are cannibals, like, officially learning.
Sure.
Ellie, we're officially learning as Ellie no, we knew, but as Ellie learns the truth, like, this moment in the game was probably the most disturbing fact while playing
Mm,
because which is a shock too. And I think that and this is something we're also going to talk about is the lack of the infected in this episode. I really do want to talk about that, so please do not let me finish this episode without mentioning this. But people who have been talking about this show and they're like, "Where are the infected? Where yeah." It's like I understand if you've never played these games, you might have gone into this with a little bit different of an assumption of what it's about.
sure.
Because it was touted as, a post-apocalyptic survival with the infected and bad people, but it's been mostly about bad people. But in reality, that's what the world would be. Even if there were monsters on the doorstep, it's the people you have to fear the most.
It's always the way. Literally
Always the
always the
way.
way.
Yeah. So, playing the game, no matter how scared you would get coming up to a bloater or a pack of clicker, whatever, it paled in comparison to the winter section with David. It
Yeah.
truly did because they went there and they continued to go there with his character beyond cannibalism. But let's
Mm,
just focus on this right now. So, we've talked a lot about living under extreme circumstances in this world. And that is one thing to take into consideration. But what he is doing is taking those circumstances to the absolute limit unnecessarily.
yes.
Because of course we have heard about real world situations where cannibalism was the only means of survival for groups of people, survivors, just unprecedented situations.
Hmm.
Truly, like, I don't gotta talk about it. We all know what I'm talking about.
Various plane crashes and things.
Yes, but all of this, again, it goes back to that the intention behind everything. This was premeditated. It was all this deranged path, and he doesn't see like, the way you and I are even talking about cannibalism right now, he doesn't even see that. That's not a word. It's just he's a part of the ecosystem, and the ecosystem consumes and births itself.
Right.
That's how delusional and fucking sick he is. that he considers himself God and heaven and cordyceps and father, and like he finds wow, the ego, first of all. Like
The lion, the witch, and the audacity of this
yeah,
bitch.
yes. Fucking yes. It is just it is so next level insanity. Oh god, people, like, I just can't stress.
Hmm.
Yeah, so anyway,
Fair enough.
all that to say, he fucking sucks. But, so, we're gonna go now more in depth, and we've been, you know, I think tiptoeing around certain things, but it's time to just talk about it. But
Sure.
he he uses her friend, and I can be your friend, and we can grow this future and spread out, and I mean, clearly they're all euphemisms. It's he wants this young 14-year-old girl to be his child bride.
Yeah.
And this is pure evil.
Hmm.
It period. That's the only reason why he spared her. The only reason why he fought so hard, not even fought so hard, ordered his men not to touch her or harm her in any way. It wasn't about he doesn't give a fuck that Joel killed his man. He was like, that was dinner. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, my guy. Like it wasn't, it was just an inconvenience. And
Yeah.
so going from there, it and back to the previous note section, it sickens me that David compares Joel calling him friend and then putting himself as a potential friend in her life in the same fucking sentence.
Sure.
He gravely misread the situation, but he
Mm.
intentionally misread it. So whether Ellie believes that he believes that or not, it doesn't matter because he knows the right words, but they're all wrong because Ellie's not a fucking idiot.
Right.
So he compliments Ellie. He tries to dismantle her relationship with Joel. All of these things, things that aren't applicable, he's just tossing into the ring, all leading to this grand plan in his head that he's been working towards for presumably 20 years now. But he's not serving the Lord Jesus Christ, our one true savior. He's serving himself,
Yeah.
and and absolutely wonderfully fortunately he gravely he underestimated Ellie.
Mm. Hmm.
And that's the saving grace of this whole sequence is that, and I'm going to make an assumption here, but anybody watching at home who hasn't played the games, I hope you knew or realized that Ellie was playing him like a fucking fiddle. That somebody as deviant and with so many premeditated and intentional plans of just ending up in this exact situation, which is what he wanted all along, could be fucking undone by a 14-year-old with the best intuition.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, a lot is said here that you he is saying things that are true without potentially even believing them himself. Like when he says, "You see a lot," right?
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
She literally is seeing what is happening in this situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is funny that
He
even when
doesn't
he
mean it
believes
literally only.
correct, yeah,
Mhm.
even when he believes he has the upper hand and he's just saying something offhandedly in an attempt to disarm her,
Mhm.
that he's telling the truth that will ultimately like bite him in the ass,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Again, we get a lot of metaphors. If he is surrounded by sheep and he is wanting of Ellie
Mhm.
in a way, in a manner that makes her a wolf, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what happens when you fuck around with wolves, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it does not end well for anybody,
Mhm.
especially one that's like caged and angry, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's you summed it up perfectly. He It's hubris on his part to have assumed that this survivor
Mhm.
uh at the first opportunity she got would not absolutely eviscerate him,
Mhm.
which well we'll get there.
Yes, we will get there, but I'm fucking chef's kissing it now. God
Yeah.
damn, I never wanted someone dead so bad. But yeah, so
Scott, no.
fuck Scott. Sorry.
What?
Scott,
No.
I'm sorry, Scott, you did an amazing job.
No.
Eh. But so Ellie's intuition, we finished our last thought with that. So we come back to this time and time again.
Hmm.
She might not have had David's pedo number from the very beginning moment with that conversation they exchanged over the campfire or the fire or
Mm.
whatever. But when she woke up, she absolutely knew it. She knew exactly what this man was about. She knew 100% what she had to do to even attempt to get out of this situation. So, she might not be as well versed in the world as others who we have met and survived alongside their journeys with until some of them have come to an end,
Yeah.
but she reads people like neon signs.
Hmm.
And A plus plus, kiddo. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. It's
Because we're
arguably one of the most important skills to have in this world,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
The monsters, they're dumb. They always are,
Yeah.
right? They might be fast, they might be near unkillable, but at their core, they're dumb.
Dumb.
You know?
Mhm.
In the video games, you have a group of clickers right in front of you, right? You just throw a bottle over that way. Boom.
Yeah.
Clickers go running after that
Bye.
shit, and you're like, I'm just gonna walk right through this hallway that I needed to go through, right? That feels pretty accurate in the world of the show too. If there were
Mhm.
a bunch of clickers, you just throw a bottle somewhere, they are
Mhm.
attracted to sound, they will go that way, right?
Yeah.
So then the real skill is reading people,
Mhm.
and that is what she is exceptional at. So,
Yes. Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah, she really is. So the intensity, I want to talk about this. The intensity of Bella Ramsey's delivery of tell them Ellie is the little girl who broke your fucking finger. So the acting was phenomenal.
Yeah.
She's been great this entire episode, but I think from that point onward in the show, that and I know I said this about Left Behind, but I take it back.
Mm.
From that moment in When We Are in Need to the remainder of the episode, that's what Bella Ramsey's gonna win the awards for.
Okay. All right.
I
You're
I
calling it? You're
I'm
calling your
calling it.
shot.
I'm
All right.
calling it.
You're Babe Ruth in it.
Yes.
You're pointing. You're like, this is the one right
Yes.
here at this moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was that's where it started, and then she just did not take her foot off the fucking gas until the end of the episode.
Nice.
So
I agree.
yeah, but now we're back outside with Joel, and Joel is making his way through the snow and whipping all around through the wind, and he's limping but moving along as best as he can. He comes up to a building and inspects the area, and he finds bloody drag marks in the snow leading inside via a door. So, breaking the lock with the butt of his rifle, he enters and flips his flashlight on, looks around a bit. He sees Ellie's backpack on the shelf up ahead of him, along with her switchblade. Then there's visible fury written all bleh. There's there's visible fury written all over his face as he holds it up and just kind of looks at it. And while we just saw his anger in action, it's getting worse. So
Mm.
he trails the blood or follows the blood trail through another door and finds the dead horse. Oh, Callus, who has now been stripped of the saddle and is frozen on the ground. There's actually a couple canoes
Hmm.
and such because again we're at a mountain resort on the lake. Must be beautiful in the summer. But beyond the canoes rather, is another bout of horror. True,
Yeah.
true horror. There are three headless corpses, human corpses, strung up and hanging from the rafters. Mm.
You
Sorry.
hate to see it.
It's so fucking gross. And we just finished dinner like right before we sat down and my stomach just went "Bleh." But it's enough it's enough of a disturbing sight that even Joel tilts back looking at this.
Yeah.
But before we get back to Ellie. So there's a quick this whole sequence is very quick. I mean, even me getting through it was very quick, but a lot happens and
Mhm.
it's all emotionally taxing. So Joel is struggling physically, but he has this drive to find Ellie and get to her no matter what it costs. So there's so many layers. Like, he's in physical pain, he's probably in pain of like the actual pain of fear of losing her and what might have happened to her. It's just evident all over his face. And while we haven't had a lot of Pedro in the last two episodes, two and whatever episodes, this little bit until the end really kind of makes up for that,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
he does so much and conveys so much with so few lines of dialogue.
I agree.
Yeah, I just we're shining all the light on Bella. I just want to give Pedro a little.
I mean, in fairness,
Yeah.
this was basically her episode. And
Oh
again,
yes, left behind.
very purposefully, we wanted to get an arc for her. So
Mhm.
I think between the last episode and this one, we have two sides of the coin that is Ellie, right?
Mhm.
We have I just think it's really masterfully done.
Yeah, I do agree. Seeing Callus dead in this way was different to the game,
Mm,
and I didn't put this in the spoiler section because it's whatever. But in the game, we saw Callus die, but not where the horse ended up. And once again, I'm here to say that I appreciate the realism, because as hungry as this group is, they would have taken that horse. Even
mhm.
though they have their fucking people, their meat locker of people,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
who's going to say no to a horse? And I remember even thinking in the game, I'm like, well, I feel like we should have seen a sequence, but we kill all of those people, so it doesn't matter anyway. But
Right.
it's interesting because as hungry as this group is, they haven't even touched or even begun preparing this horse, which tells me all I need to fucking know about how hungry David keeps his people.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't even touched their people yet, you know?
Yes.
How could
That's like he's legitimately keeping them under his like the heel of his fucking boots.
Yeah, they're not hungry because there's a lack of food. They're hungry because David wants them to be hungry.
Yes. Fucker.
Classic.
And speaking of the dead body, so this is another reveal that David is a cannibal and forces cannibalism onto his followers who are unaware, or maybe to an extent they don't care enough to care where their food comes from. They
Mm.
just believe what they're told and that's good enough for them. And listen, I'm not blaming anybody. When you're that desperate and in dire straits, you're going to shut your fucking mouth. I hate to
Sure.
say it. That's the what is
Human.
the human proclivity to survive despite the worst circumstances is astonishing.
Yeah.
And we've seen this again and again in reality, in wartime, in famine, in it just over and over, and it never ceases to amaze me. I feel like we talked about this in some other context somewhere at some point, but I can't remember what it was.
It sounds like one of your Mad Libs. Somewhere at some
At some
point, we
point.
talked about a thing at a place in a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all that to say, it's just fear mongering and control to the max.
Is it the one thing I'll say that makes these folks, not David, but his folks, a little more sympathetic here is that in the game, they were all just bad guys,
Yeah,
right?
we didn't see
There
the
was no nuance. It was just
mhm,
like, you have to kill all these people that are eating people. It's
mhm,
like, kill cannibals. Objective complete. Um,
yeah,
Here, it's these people just have nothing else. And
mhm,
so that makes them quite a bit more sympathetic. I feel like the people that we do see die in grisly ways are the people who were in the know about the whole
yeah,
cannibalism thing. So
yeah,
that's kind of a comeuppance that I like. That's
yeah,
the comeuppance I like in my media, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah, and at the end of the episode, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, it makes me wonder what happened to those people, because but in essence, they're free.
They are free.
So, but I mean, some of them were elderly. So what happened? I don't know. You don't want to feel bad for this group of people, but if that's one thing that The Last of Us really wants you to do is to find empathy for different groups of people,
Sure.
and it seeing that side of David's story and these people that had no other choice because they've been abused and lied to for years and manipulated and so on and so forth. It's just, and I don't want to hear any arguments from anyone about like, well, they could have just laughed, the people this I hate that fucking argument when they talk about people who are in abusive relationships and domestic violence and stuff like that. Like you don't fucking know at all what that's like being in that situation and feeling like there is no way out. It's not like these people want to fucking stay. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't believe that they can leave though. So,
Right.
that's that.
Yeah. It's a cycle. It's a cycle.
Yes. Lastly, before moving on, this was I told you we alluded to a couple questions this episode. So, viewers of the show at home who have not played the game, another question. Were
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba.
Oh, I actually technically asked this. Like, were you surprised by David's turn? Like this, preacher turned pedo sicko cannibal. Were you surprised?
Yeah.
Were you put off about him from the start when the full reveal of his intentions with Ellie and the way that he was leading this group of people, all of it, the way he sees himself? How did you receive that? Please write in and let us know. tloupodcast@gmail.com.
Okay. I'm waiting. I'll be waiting right here.
We're not even going to finish this podcast until we hear.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
cue up the Jeopardy music. No, we're gonna swing back to Ellie here. So we cut back into this room with the cage with the Ellie inside of it. David and James barrel through the doorway. Ellie flees to the opposite side of the room and screams, but they both go to her. They open this door, they go after her, they grab her. She bites David on his hand and struggles as they pull her from the cell. Ellie begs them to wait as they throw her on top of the butcher block.
Mm.
David and James are holding her down, and David lifts the cleaver. She screams. At this point, Ellie is saying, don't do it, whatever. And she screams that she's infected. I'm infected, I'm infected, I'm infected. David halts the blade and stutters a sound at this, right? Ellie whispers, and now so are you, before
Mm.
instructing them to look at the bite on her arm. David slams the cleaver down right beside her head. It's a great maneuver that they do in movies, a great fake out. And then raises her sleeve to see the infected scar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ellie repeats David's line right back to him, in your face. Everything happens for a reason. James just says, David, wait. Unbelievable. James begins to doubt that this is a real bite, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And says that she would have turned by now if that were the case.
No, David says that. James looks at David and says, David, like, he's like, dude. And
Yeah,
then David's like, she would have turned by now.
that's right. Yeah, I got the order confused, but that is correct. Yeah. Ellie takes this moment. It's just the smallest moment as they pause to consider their options,
Mm-hmm.
grabs the cleaver from right beside her and slams it into James' neck. It is not great it's not looking good for James. Again, I'm no doctor, but he might be in trouble. She races off the block and out the door as David pops off a shot and he misses her, right? So she's
he
pew,
popped
right
off
out.
like 6 shots, but sure.
Yeah, sure. All right. I mean, missed every single one. James slumps against the wall and bleeds out. He looks to James, but the scene quickly goes to Ellie bursting through a swinging door of a restaurant kitchen, right? Okay, so, okay, where am I? She's getting her bearings. It's the resort's steakhouse, I believe, right? That's where we end up.
Yeah, Todd's restaurant.
Todd's, that's correct. She goes out into the dining room area. She's trying like every single door that leads outside to get out. They're all locked.
Mhm.
She runs through another door back into the kitchen. She grabs a log of wood that is like been burning. So there's all these embers on the end, right? At that same moment, David rips the butcher knife from James' neck, very just devil may care about this situation, and exits the room, uncaring about his right hand man, who is
Mhm.
now resting in peace. I guess next week's dinner. Who knows?
Oh,
That's it. Let's talk.
yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Sorry, I got caught up in the thought. I'm like, would Troy Baker have been dinner for the
100%.
following week if
They just
they?
put him right out and with the other hanging dead bodies that are out there.
It's awful, but ugh, not Troy, James. Sorry,
With
but
Troy Baker.
no, not Troy. So, another short scene, but holy fucking shit. It was packed. I mean, it was packed, and Bella Ramsey, the actor that you are,
Yes.
and this is I'm quoting the iconic Nephilim over on Twitter, is an incredible artist.
Hmm.
If you do not follow their account, please go over iconic Nephilim. But they just tweeted at the end of the episode, Bella Ramsey, the actor that you are, and it has stuck with me because while I knew this moment, while you and I both knew this moment was coming,
Hmm.
I actually physically choked a sob out at her screaming and fighting back at these two men slamming her down onto a butcher table. Not even a block, just a fucking butcher table.
Yeah.
It was so hard to watch, but so expertly acted on Bella's part.
Hmm.
Yeah. That was,
Yeah.
again, I told you, foot right down to the floor with Bella. So
That's it.
Ellie killing James. This is true to the game. Ellie did the same thing with a machete, not a cleaver, I believe, right?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. That sounds
Because Dave,
correcter.
yeah, I don't come for me if I'm wrong. Um, because I just watched the show. I haven't recently played that section of the game, but seeing Ellie kill video game Joel, and this is my Joel. I knew this was bound to happen. I called it earlier on in this season. Or no, not in the season, over on Wayfaring Strangers on one of our bonus shows. I was like, as soon as we found out that Troy Baker was cast as James, I was like, fuck. Like Ellie's going to kill Joel, my Joel.
That's right.
And that makes me sad. It hurt just as I expected it to. It didn't hurt because James got killed, like fuck James, but it hurt because it was of the other relationship. So,
Mm.
yes, but all that to say, hats off to you, Troy Baker. I love that you were included in this episode and in this adaptation of something that you brought. I'm going to cry. I didn't think I was going to cry. I'm going to cry again next week. But
Both of the Miller brothers, both of the Miller brothers.
just yeah, I mean, again, Perry was played by Jeffrey Pierce, who was Tommy Miller in the games, and we
Mhm.
saw what happened to him. That was a bit more violent. But
More violent than this?
his head was ripped off. Yes. Anyway,
All right.
so
Sure.
it was just I love Tommy Miller and I love Jeffrey Pierce, but Joel is just Joel. And those games mean the world to me.
Hmm.
And I'm so happy that he was included in the show and given a place and given a moment to be a part of it and be on set and work with this Ellie.
Hmm.
And it was, yes. So hats off to you. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Mhm. So Ellie is an absolute fighter through and through. We are going to talk more about this in the next section though, because I started to write the note and I was like, you know what? Let's save it. So
You know what scenes really show how much of a fighter she is? Dot dot dot.
yeah, let's
This
get to
one.
the yeah. So Ellie waits beside or behind the side of a wall as David enters the restaurant, and she's holding that burning log still. And as she sees him approach, she launches the log at David but misses by a mile. However, she manages to set Todd's restaurant ablaze. So David does nothing to stop it from burning, though. He does look back at it a few times and then back to where he last saw her, but instead he opts to find and kill her.
Mm.
So he searches on the cleaver in hand still, and menacingly, David begins to taunt her here and says that there's no way out, that the doors are locked and he has the keys. And he watches the restaurant burn and continues this taunting by saying her name over and over and fucking creep. But it quickly cuts to Joel, and he's once again walking in the severe weather, but his pistol is drawn and Ellie's backpack is in his hand.
Mm.
And then it quickly goes back to David, and he says he knows that Ellie's not infected because she's fighting too hard to stay alive. So, in that vein, he wants to know her secret. How did she do it? Or is she that fucking special? And you know what, David? She is, you bitch. But he adds that no one likes to be humiliated, and kind of yells here in this like pleading cry that she doesn't know how good he is and what he could have given her if only
That's
she just let him.
that's peak incel behavior, by the way.
Oh, peak. Oh, fucking gag. But if only she just let him. But he says, you know what? Neither one of us is dying today. He changed his mind. She does need a father. And Ellie grabs a steak knife here and then hides behind the bar as he speaks his bullshit. And oh god, my cursing, like I have a foul mouth. People from Wayfair know that I have a foul
Mm.
mouth. I try to
Yes.
keep it under
It's well
wraps in
documented.
the last cast. But David's trying me, and I'm just going to let him fly. All right? So, whatever. But so David continues here with this and says he's going to keep her and teach her. And he lowers his voice here and he begins taunting again. And she crawls out and glimpses that she is placed behind him. And from here she races right at him, screaming, which gives away her position, and stabs him in the side. But he throws her down real quick onto the ground. Similar, I hate to say this, similar to what Joel did in episode 1 when Ellie launched herself at him with a knife and he just kind of swatted her out of the
Oh my
way.
god, Joel and David are the same.
You fucking you're getting fired from the podcast with one episode left.
With just one left.
With just one
No.
left. Who wants to take Andrew's spot? You're fired.
Unbelievable.
So, again, I don't say that to draw a comparison between Joel and David because there is no fucking comparison aside from the fact that they're men. That's it. But
Sure.
the mirroring and the parallels that they love to do with the show. That's all. That's all. That's it. So,
Okay. Hey.
uh so he grabs his wound afterwards and then curses, but he watches her as she begins to move. And Ellie spots the cleaver up ahead on the ground under a table right ahead of her and starts moving towards it. And he kicks her violently in her side, which forces her partway onto her back. And this is just enough leverage for David to get down on top of her and hold her arms down up above her head. And Ellie screams in his face at this and spits at him. Anything in this moment she is able to do, she will do. And he smiles and continues leaning into this just just demonic deviant behavior and tells her that the fighting is the part he likes the most. And she mules again, and it's that same almost like a keening sound that she made when Henry killed himself in front of her. It's a horrible guttural sound. And David goes on here about there's no fear in love before he begins to reach down on whatever
Hmm.
himself. And but thank fuck Ellie reaches the cleaver and oh god, she nails him with it. And as he falls back, she unleashes Ellie unleashes all of hell upon him and bludgeons this man to death off screen. And then she keeps fucking going and she's screaming all the while. And this is a very Ellie is expelling every single demon here, every hurt, every loss, every horror that has ever visited this girl in her 14 short years of life.
Mm.
And eventually she stops and stares ahead. She doesn't look down at the minced meat that David obviously is now, and we don't see that either.
Yeah.
We don't need to,
It's
but
best left to the imagination.
yeah, fucking, anyway, wood chipper his ass. But after this, She exits the burning restaurant and she is splattered head to toe with blood. So she begins to wander aimlessly, heaving still from the adrenaline of everything and fresh air because she was just in a building that's literally burning
On
down.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah. And Joel comes up behind her here and he grabs her arms and she screams as he whips her around and she fights him off at first and her eyes are sealed shut. She's just completely lost to the trauma. And who knew what she imagined there? That somehow he came back to life or another one of his men. She just God seriously, God only knows. But the way that Joel looks at her here and calms her down, there is so much fear on his face
Mm,
and in his expression for what she might have endured, but there's also this level of release that she is alive and standing in front of him. And Joel just mumbles and whispers like over and over, "It's me, it's me, it's okay, it's okay, baby girl, I got you, I got you." And we'll get to the baby girl comment in a second, but I know. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But she goes right in and hugs him at this, and she mumbles a little bit. And afterwards, she settles into the comfort of Joel just being there. And we see Joel's broken watch face clear as day as he holds her. And we know what it took for him to get to this moment. We've seen not every single, but a lot of it unfold before our
sure.
eyes. And Joel closes his eyes as well and just lets go of that fear, the murderous intent that he probably was just, oh my god, making his teeth boil, and the 10 million-pound lead in his gut because she's here.
Yeah.
She's safe. He can work with this. And after he takes off his jacket and wraps her in it, and they he turns them away from the building and limps alongside her as they walk away towards the lake or water together. And
Mm-hmm.
Joel holding on to Ellie as this scene fades to black.
Okay.
Ellie as a fighter. Let's discuss. I I
This is
don't.
coffee talk.
Yeah, it's coffee talk. Let's discuss that. I don't even know where to begin. I feel like a million elements have. I mean, a million billion elements happen to us all to create who we are and the
Hmm.
personalities and our fight or flight responses and so on and so forth. Her innate reaction is to fight, to push back, whether it's with a comment, her switchblade, her physical self, whatever it is, her whole life has been spent fighting. And I feel like this is the culmination of that,
Sure.
of everything she's ever been through. And wow. I literally we're on a fucking podcast and I feel like I don't have words because
That's
of
tough
yeah,
because
not
that's
great.
the whole medium.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember everyone, not everyone, that's not true. I don't want to generalize. I remember a few people being trepidatious about Bella Ramsey in
Mm,
this role, right?
mhm.
Back when it was announced, like before we had even seen anything, just name alone.
Yeah.
And it's clear that everybody, the casting director, Craig, everyone saw her potential
Yeah.
and cast based off of that potential that maybe
Yeah.
we weren't even truly fully aware of,
Mhm.
that has emerged throughout the course of this season so far.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. It's incredible
Mhm.
to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I I remember her being announced, and you know what, I'm gonna say that. I was in Camp Bella Ramsey from the beginning.
Okay.
I was very I remember what she did on Game of Thrones in the limited amount of time that she was on that show, and she
Sure.
started on that show when she was 11 years old.
Right.
Now she's 19. I think she was 18 when she filmed The Last of Us, but I was blown away that this child actor could convey so much in a short amount of time. So whatever her audition scene was for The Last of Us, and maybe somebody out there knows what it is and it's been talked about, but I cannot spend my life reading about The Last of Us because I have to do this. So if anybody knows, please let me know.
Yeah.
But if whatever her audition scene was. If it involved a single moment from this episode,
This was the one that
that
sold it.
yeah, 100%. There was no second audition. There was nothing. It was, "Hi, do you accept?"
Right. These are the terms. Do you accept?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So David being the giant piece of pedo dog shit in full force at the end. I've said this many times already. I'm so happy that he got literally butchered because bye fucko. I can't that felt so good to see that happen, and I don't know what that says about me as a person, and I don't care. But one, it's fiction. But two,
Sure.
a part of me, we're parents to a teenage girl. She's gonna be 14 in what's today? Literally 6 days, 7 days, a week. So I'd be like, do the same. I'll do the same for you. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
Allow me.
yeah. Yeah. All that to say, felt good.
Okay. Yeah. You'll get no argument here from me. The pedophile was punished severely. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
As they all fucking should be. Side note, I don't know if anybody noticed this, and
Uh-oh.
maybe you didn't. It's this weird it almost looks like that final scene after she's done cleaving him to death,
Okay.
and she stops and just stares straight out ahead. Her hair is partially in front of her face, and she's just breathing and staring and just trying to calm. I don't even fucking know what you would do in that moment, what you're trying to do.
Sure.
But it almost
Serenity.
looked, yeah, well,
Serenity now. Serenity now.
I don't even think that there was a single thought in her head at that point.
Yeah.
Just let's get the fuck out of here, I guess. But it almost looked like they superimposed Ashley Johnson's face onto Bella's in a way, or merged the two of them in the
What?
last scene when she comes up and we see her face. It's eerie as hell.
Okay.
And excuse me. And I don't know, I doubt that that's what happened, because there were people doing comparison threads of how Bella Ramsey in a lot of different ways looks like Ashley Johnson, who of course played the game Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
But oof, that gave me shivers. I was like, "Oh my god. It looks like Ashley." Yeah, it looks like
Is
Ashley.
that a ghost?
Yeah, that's all.
I didn't notice that, but that's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool.
I'll try to pull up the scene for you.
If you find it, yeah, let me know. I'll pop it in the video version so people who are watching along can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely will. Little bit of a talking point. So,
Unbelievable.
and my cousin Erica and I, hi Erica, talked about this, and she brought up a really good comparison. So, after all of this cleaving, butchering moment,
Mm-hmm.
there would have been an enormous amount of blood on Ellie. And not just blood, but like pieces of David. Tiny little pieces of David.
Mm.
However, Erica brought up a really great point where she said, a burning building with a blood soaked girl has been done before, a la Carrie, Stephen
Mm.
King's Carrie.
Mm.
So maybe they avoided having her look like she took a blood bits bath because they didn't want to replicate that. Or maybe they were afraid of alienating audiences. I don't
Mhm.
know. It would not have alienated me, just FYI. But I'm curious to know why they did that. She had a couple but that no. I've watched enough true crime. I've seen a lot no. She'd be disgusting.
The answer could also be far simpler in that maybe Bella Ramsey didn't want to sit in makeup for that long.
Maybe.
It's like, I don't want to be covered in viscera. Can we not? Can we do less? And HBO's like, yeah, sure, why not?
That's all. It could be that. It could
Yeah,
be.
I'm always looking for a simple answer. It could be it when you get to that, right?
Hmm.
And again, I don't know what order. Generally, these things are not filmed chronologically.
Mm.
So even though this is appearing towards the end of the season, it could very well be the very first thing they filmed because, like, they required this to be during winter, right?
Yeah, but
Very
they
much.
started filming in July.
Yeah. So, oh, maybe so. It very much could have been that.
Mhm.
I don't know what Calgary is like or how it snows there, though. So I don't know. But
I don't think it snows in July, I can say that.
well, well, Calgarians, please let us know.
Calca
Calgarians, is that what you like to be called? Albertans, probably. Um,
Canadians.
No, I need specific to the region of Calgary. I don't care about at this point. I don't care about the rest of Canada. I just need to know about the winter
Wow.
or the snowing
Wow.
portions in Calgary.
Just
Um,
alienated so much of our listenership.
I care deeply about all Canadians,
Mhm.
but in the context of this conversation, I just need to know about Calgary. Can we please? Um, anyway, it could literally just be time or budget reasons for why they chose not to have her covered in blood. What is so funny?
1, it's 8 o'clock, and I'm a little slap happy, okay? And 2, the way that you said reasons sounded like you were sick, like a sick kid. You're like, "Reasons."
Reasons. The only reason.
Sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it could just be, yeah. Um, I tend to think that a show like this and people like Craig and Neil would
Mhm.
love to pay homage to one of the greats in
Yeah.
Carrie, if that strikes them.
Yeah. Maybe.
But this very well probably could have been more a function of budget than anything else. So that's
Mm,
all. That's all.
perhaps. Perhaps. Bella Ramsey, the awards you have coming to you. Oof.
Unbelievable.
The madness imbued into that sequence was unbelievable to witness. I cannot imagine, Andrew, I cannot imagine being in that
You have
room
to imagine it.
and the energy of being present as that scene was filmed. That must have been extraordinary and so emotionally draining. I and physically, like, I know the cleaver, whatever, was digital, but I how many takes did that take? I hope it was just the one, but that's not how Hollywood works. I
No.
yeah. Yeah.
I was listening to this is kind of just a very small tangent, but relevant,
Mhm,
if you'll allow it, Your Honor. Um, I was listening to Smartless,
mhm,
which is one of my favorite podcasts to just go on a walk and listen to. And on one of the recent episodes, I can't remember who the guest was. Jason Bateman was talking about how he's able to cry on like during acting,
yeah,
and he was like, "It is a muscle that I work. That is a muscle that no human being should work.
mhm.
Wherein when I need to cry, I just think about the most awful thing that could happen, and it usually it usually means something terrible has happened to my wife and my daughters. And as like I do that, and I well up, and I'm like, okay, roll, roll, roll." And so I think, you know, Bella was in that place. She
Mm,
was in that place.
yeah.
Not tears necessarily, but like what could be the, you know,
Madness.
yeah,
Absolute
what
madness.
and that it's always a little worrisome. Like what did what did you have to tap into to get there, right?
Mhm,
Just crazy. It's crazy to think about.
yeah. Oh, I have so much I could tap in to get to that point,
Of course. Of course. It's
but
all well
I'm
documented
I'm
throughout
done.
the throughout podcasts over the years.
Hilarious.
Roll the tape.
So alright, so Joel bringing Ellie back from the edge of absolute insanity.
Sure.
This was done differently in the show than in the game. And I'm should I talk about it here or in the spoiler section?
Spoilers.
Okay.
We have people that listen to this show specifically because
It's
we
not the
don't
game.
we yes.
Yeah. I get that. All right. So while I need to talk about this and our next comment are kind of intertwined, as it were. This scene is my favorite scene in the whole game, so it had a lot to live up to. Like,
Okay.
enormous shoes to fill.
And did
The
it?
changes that they made worked well in the show, but the events in the game were better.
Wow.
Specifically, the events with Joel and Ellie were better.
Okay.
I think, Bella Ramsey's moment, killing David, fighting off David, that whole sequence, the whole winter chapter essentially, uh, right there with Ashley Johnson's performance. But the changes that they made to Joel and Ellie reuniting
Hmm.
did not hit was just it just wasn't as impactful. And I don't know why they changed it. I
Yeah.
don't know why they changed the music again.
Hmm.
They're making these subtle changes that to the most important scenes of the games, whether it's music or dialogue or location or uh, something, it does not fucking make sense to me. And like I said before, we're losing something from the overall pacing of the show, which is something else
Mm.
that I'm going to talk about. That's our last comment actually of the episode. But yeah, I just think it was better in the game. And he didn't. No, I don't want you to laugh because it's not like this tit for tat or they're trying to outdo the game or anything like that or
Sure.
I don't think it's that at all. It's interesting. That's what I mean. It's interesting that they made these changes because what worked so well in the game would have worked just as well here. And he didn't save her in the game. She saved herself. That was a permanent, like, Ellie found the permanent solution to her problem, not Joel. But the way that he brings her back from that edge of madness is
Hmm.
important to the story of Ellie and the implications of things that happen in part 2. And now they've changed that, and I'm concerned.
You're concerned. I get it.
I'm concerned.
Your concern has been noted
Yes.
numerous times.
And it's gonna continue to be noted. And yeah.
Here again, I bang on the drum. In Craig, we trust. If they are making these changes, then I believe that they have already considered what those changes could mean.
Mhm.
And they have moved the pieces on the board such that it hasn't, in my estimation at least,
Mhm.
fundamentally changed the groundwork.
Mhm.
A lot of things have been improved as far as I can tell. Um, so if they have to you know, crane game a piece of the story from this part and then drop it over here, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why.
Mhm.
I guess I'll have to wait and see. Like that's really all I'm saying is that I noted, right?
Mhm.
But then I have no strong opinion about it until I see the payoff of it, right?
Mhm.
I feel like you're probably there too, though you're more certainly more protective of your baby boy.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And that brings up the baby girl sequence. That was very, very important
Yeah.
to have included because if that was left out, I'm pretty sure Neil and Craig would be like, "Yeah, well, we just fucking burned the whole franchise down with that." But because
they, they'd be
yeah,
laughing all the way to season 2 though, you know what I'm saying?
I know. It's all about the bottom line, I
It's
know.
fine. But they did it. I'm
Yeah.
saying that it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. It was it was a very important moment for Joel's character in particular, and it always amazes me because that is exactly what happened in the game. It's very, very similar dialogue.
Mhm.
Um, And I'm not going to go too deeply into the fact that David did try to sexually assault Ellie in that moment before she cleaved him to death. I think that goes without saying. I don't think we have to talk about it because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
However, she will feel the ramifications of that and probably have PTSD from both his actions against her and hers against him. I didn't want to not touch on it because I don't think because people would have been like, did you not realize that he was trying to? No, I mean, yes, of course I did. He was trying to the entire fucking episode, essentially.
Yes.
And then when it didn't go his way, he resulted to just brute force, which is his true colors for all intents and purposes.
Hmm.
So, you know, the whole sequence with back to Joel, the whole sequence having him say that to her, she does not understand the impact of that at
Right.
all. She doesn't know the significance of baby girl in his life, in his history with his daughter. She only knows that he had a daughter. That's it. But for us, it was so beautiful. It was beautiful the first time I heard it in the game. That's why it's my favorite moment out of
Mm.
all of The Last of Us. And I'm very happy that they included it.
You did it. They
Yes.
did it.
Yes.
We did it. We made this happen, I think.
It
Um
really is. It's like, you know what that's called? Growth. For Joel.
Growth.
Growth. Yeah.
The show does a great job of threading the needle of things we know and
Mhm.
things the characters know. And sometimes those are the same. Sometimes we know more than the characters, and sometimes the characters know more than us,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those instances where we know more than Ellie, right?
Mhm.
And that enriches the story for us.
Sure.
It'll be important for her as a character because she will obviously remember this moment. Hopefully, hopefully the takeaway from this was that Joel was there for her. Joel survived, number one, thanks to her,
Mhm.
and that he was there for her in this moment of madness.
Yes.
That's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
So Joel, again, mirrory type things, right? Ellie, in the beginning of this episode, Ellie saved Joel in a physical sense, and at the end of this episode, Joel saved Ellie in a mental, psychological sense.
Yeah.
So again, these there is a codependence
Mhm.
with these two.
Mhm.
Maybe codependence isn't the right word, but there is
No, it
a.
is. It absolutely is.
I mean, I don't. I know that there can sometimes be like a negative connotation to codependent. I'm just saying that they are what I am trying to get at is that they are like puzzle pieces that fit, right? Like
Yeah.
these two people, they fit together in
Mhm.
a very unique way. So
Mhm.
I like that stuff. I mean, I really think that that's like we had that in the game, and
Mhm.
I like when you are able to these things like rejigger the story a little bit. Like they're like, oh, again, it might be heavy-handed. I don't know. I don't know if people are
Mhm.
noticing this stuff the way that we are noticing this stuff or not. It's
Mhm.
hard to. I don't really talk to a lot of people about the show at a deep level because I don't want to be like. First of all, I don't want to talk for 4 goddamn hours to them about it because I could, uh, but also I want to be able to form my own ideas and get this out. So like after this whole show's done, then I'm happy to talk to everybody about everything, right? But
Mhm.
like up until that point, I'm like, I gotta stay away. I just love what they're doing here.
Okay.
These little mirror moments.
Okay. Yes, I certainly I'm more of the pick and choosy kind of mirror moments. And when they bop us over the head a little bit too much, it becomes redundant. And but again, that's just that's it's harder because we're huge fans of the game,
Yeah.
but it's for people who are not. So I understand why they have to do it.
Yeah. And like I said, I think I said this in an earlier episode. I am sure that they are playing a numbers game where they're like, they might not get all of these. It might
Yeah.
this show is richer. I feel like this season probably becomes far richer on rewatch for a lot of people. After
Oh,
you're finished
yeah.
episode 9, wait a week, wait 2 weeks, then go back if you can. I know it's dark. If you can, go back and then
Mhm,
rewatch knowing what you know of
mhm.
how this arc plays out.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will find new things, in it that maybe weren't there on first viewing.
yeah. And that's honestly one thing that I'm looking forward to very much when our last season 1 episode goes live. I c
Last cast?
I can't wait well, of the regular season
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
When that last episode publishes, I can't wait to rewatch this whole season without having to do, the show, and I know that sounds bad or like I don't love doing the show. Stop. I love doing this show, but we have to watch it from such an analytical point of view and
Sure.
pay attention to every fucking detail that some of the joy of just watching it gets lost. So I'm really, really looking forward to that, and maybe I'll find things that I missed and or appreciate things that I didn't appreciate much in the beginning. I don't know. It could be, maybe we'll do a catch up episode or something like that. Anyway, but I hate to end the show with this last final note, but
Then don't. Then
I'm
don't.
no, I'm going to because I think it's important and we've
Oh,
received emails where people appreciate us being real and not just, being a kiss ass essentially.
how
I'm
dare you?
not I'm not going to say everything is 100 across the board because you know how I feel about that. There are imperfections everywhere and there's nothing wrong with that. But the pacing. So, the pacing and the infected, those are the last two talking points
Okay.
into one. This section in the game is just simply called winter. And in it there's uh a lot of what we saw in the show, but there's also this moment of Ellie and David fighting off a horde of infected, and uh, part of that includes a bloater. And again, if you're listening only because you love the show and you don't give a flying f about the game, just stay with me for a couple minutes because I'm relating this all to the show. I promise.
Okay.
That moment of Ellie and David fighting off the horde, I always felt was very important to how deeply disturbing his turn is later on in the chapter section, which would have been later on in this show.
Mm.
And this goes back to pacing, what we were talking about in the Left Behind episode last week, in that in the individual episodes, the pacing is phenomenal. But on the whole, things are falling off to the sides and there's loss. There's like it's suffering from how breakneck of a pace they're taking this. And because they included, the two of the best episodes of the entire season are not one of them actually. One of them was not core to the story of The Last of Us, but they adapted it to make it core to The Last of Us and thus now it is. And again, I love that episode with my whole heart and that's of course episode 3. Long long time. But when you look at Left Behind, if you're not going to extend the season, break it up into 1.5 or 2 seasons. I think that this show is suffering from not having some of these key combat moments that work to build bonding between characters. It's
Mm.
not just the infected or the lack thereof. I don't fucking care. I agree over and over again. This story is not about the infected. It never fucking was.
Preach.
But those moments, and in particular with Ellie and David, she began to trust him because they worked together to fight off an imminent threat. And he used that to his advantage to essentially trick her before revealing, like, he's traveling with a little girl, like with his creepy voice, because lent, of course, by Nolan North, who is wonderful. He's just an incredible actor and performance capture artist. But yeah, I just felt that this episode should have been 2 episodes. Winter
Hmm.
was a not a long chapter, but it was long enough and so much happened, and they condensed it down to 50 minutes. And I was like, "This is not enough. This is not enough." And David was still a creepy fuck regardless, but I feel like it would have been more impactful to the end of the chapter to have had some of what was in the game. And that goes back to the pacing of the entire series. I think that things are beginning to suffer as we race to the finish line.
I don't know what the end game is
Me
in
neither.
terms of as far as I could tell, it seems like season 1 is game 1,
It
right? And
is.
then I know that I mean, yes.
But it's game 1 and the DLC. And
Right.
an extra episode that wasn't even a part of the original fucking story. It's too much condensed into 9 episodes.
Game 1. um I'm okay with this journey that I'm on.
All right.
Uh I
I'm not surprised.
right.
As our reviewer just said, Andrew just happy to go along.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. I I think they've done enough uh, in video games specifically.
Mhm.
uh, And then even more specifically when this game came out. We weren't necessarily at the level yet where we could work through some of this nuance.
Mhm.
For all intents and purposes, like The Last of Us changed the course of video games,
It did.
how they were made, their narratives, their storytelling.
All of it.
There were games that were before, and then there are games that are after.
Mhm.
And you could see, if you focus on narrative games, specifically narrative games from PlayStation Studios,
Yeah.
they became so much more after The Last of Us. And in that, there are things that you can do in video games, and then sometimes things that you have to do in video games in order to engage the player, you the
Hold on.
player. Yeah.
My mic what is your time at in Audio Hijack?
1:30:44
Mine stopped 23 minutes ago.
when it unplugged.
I guess cuz it just shows as a red fucking button.
It's not recording right now.
No.
It's okay. We
So,
have it in Zencaster.
all right, then I'm going to start recording again.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ, I want this episode done.
I'll wrap it up. Wrap it up. All that is to say, there are things that you can do that you can do and sometimes have to do in video games to engage the player because the nuance of a performance isn't there.
Yeah.
Likewise, there are things that don't translate or work in the shift from a game to a show simply because a show can deliver the nuance
Mhm.
pr- properly.
Mhm.
All that is to say, I thought that trust bit that you're talking about between Ellie and David was shorthanded very quickly in that little conversation that they were having while they were waiting for James to get back. So there
Mhm.
you mentioned it, she did let her guard down there for a minute, right? And then again, he just let her go. He gave her the medicine and let her go. So I feel like that was kind of, for me, that was kind of enough. I don't need them to be fighting off uh, waves of infected together when when put another way, given the opportunity between give me a small character moment or a huge battle in the context of this show, I'll take that small character moment because they've proven they could do those exceptionally well. That's where I'll leave it.
I understand that, and I agree with you to an extent. I just think the last 4 episodes have been a lot of small character moments that have been extremely powerful, but I don't know. I just I'm not saying I don't I just you know what the problem is I'm afraid of people misconstruing my words and being like, "Oh, she just wants infected in combat sequences just in no." No, I don't. It's
No,
just
that's
weird.
there's
They're completely gone from the story. They are gone. And that is fucking weird to me. And it didn't have to be a horde that David and Ellie faced in the show. It literally could have been one fucking infected or a clicker. And he just like fires over her shoulder and she's like, oh shit, thanks. Like, that's nothing.
yeah.
It could, but the absolute lack of it is so strange.
Yeah. Again, yeah. I got nothing really
Yeah.
other
No,
than like
it's fine.
I don't miss them, right? Like
Mm,
I'm uh, every episode we sit down and
mhm,
I'm here, I am aware, at least in my own brain, that the infected are out there and they are a threat. They are an ever present looming threat. Maybe not immediately right now,
mhm,
but they are there. Another thing is it could very well be that they picked this place because maybe the infected don't like the cold. It happens with zombies. A lot of people that we've seen it in zombie lore before. People move to like northern Canada and they just freeze. Like the undead literally just freeze in place. And you're like,
mm,
that's a great defense mechanism. So
yeah.
um those are just, I mean, those are things potentially justifications for me. However, I'm never like thinking like, when's the next clicker going to show up? Because I'm always like, oh, they're definitely out there. We are definitely going to see them again.
Mm.
But right now we have this other big problem of like this fucking clown right in front of us.
Yeah, and you just literally reminded me of a tweet that I saw, and I don't know who wrote it, and I apologize. And I'm gonna paraphrase awfully awful right now. But basically in the game you had this sense that at any moment an infected could s- run up behind you, stalk behind you, click behind you, or bloat behind you, whatever it was. Like you had this okay. Like, always on the edge, always this, like, simmering level of adrenaline ready to fucking attack.
Yeah.
That is gone from the game. I legitimately forget sometimes that they are walking in a world and making all this fucking noise and doing all this loud shit in a world that is supposedly crawling with infected humans. I legitimately have forgot about them, and I'm like, "That's weird."
I think it's probably just population centers. That's all. Again, those are just my like. Again, these could all be justifications, but like, yes, there are people everywhere,
Mhm.
like
But the more
everywhere.
city populations, you're gonna
Right.
find more infected, yeah.
And this is a resort, so maybe there were people here, infected. I mean, people that turned into infected.
Bougie infected, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's click our way with that, shall we?
Let's
Uh,
click all the way to the brandy lounge.
yeah, cigars. Uh, cigars. I don't know why I just said cigars. That's not a. Anyway,
Somebody
I
draw if you're listening to this, please somebody draw a clicker with a cigar.
and a
Please.
top hat,
And a top hat.
and maybe a pocket watch. He's like,
Maybe
maybe he's checking his pocket watch,
yeah.
like a gold pocket watch on a chain.
Please.
Check this, Daddy-O. I don't know why he's in the 30s either, or 50s. I don't fucking know. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just, when we move closer to population centers is when I feel like, okay, here is where the real danger is, and then that feels authentic to me as well,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If you weren't killed by the government, like in Billstown, if you weren't just summarily executed,
Mm,
and you didn't make your way to a QZ, then I have to imagine the sheer just number of people that were on the outskirts of both of those conditions either weren't evacuated and murdered or didn't make it to a QZ, that limits the number that you may run into in the actual real world. I don't know that for sure. I really
Mhm.
don't. But
Sure.
like, it tracks for me is what I'll say.
All right. I just needed to bring
You
it
forget
up.
about them. You forget about the infected, but I never forget. And
Mm.
that's why I'm going to live forever.
Okay. You do that.
I'm the first one dead.
Oh my gosh. But that is the end of episode 8, When We Are in Need. So,
Mm.
quick video game spoiler, some comparison. So, if you would like to listen to this for the next 4-ish minute, about 3 minutes, not going to be that long. And then come back and hang out with us a little bit more to talk about the end of the show stuff and also the giveaway mention
The giveaway.
and such. So, when we are in need, he shall provide. This is also in the game in Todd's restaurant. But like we said, they played up the religion and the religious aspect of David being a preacher, whereas in the game he was just the leader of the town.
Yeah.
The white rabbit lives. So we did talk about this, but I just found it interesting because in the game, Ellie uses a bow and arrow and nails this bunny, and it became a fucking meme of this girl gaming and watching it and just like bawling her eyes out. And I mean it was sad, but like anyway. So
It was sad, but food.
yeah. So what was lost we literally just talked about this, but what was lost between the Ellie and David scene when James went off to get the meds? All the infected stuff. I'm not gonna revisit that.
Yeah.
But it
That's where that
but even
happened.
yeah, but that is exactly where it happened. Basically, Ellie holds David and James up at gunpoint over the deer. In same interaction. And then she says she needs medicine. He sends James off to the town. And while James is gone, they go into that, dilapidated building or whatever, and then end up having to fight off a horde. And then that's when James gets back, reveals that, David and his men are bad guys. And then Ellie runs off with the meds. Now, in this show, I think the other thing that was a little weird, it was like he tells David tells James to go get the meds, and then he
Mhm.
says to Ellie, "Well, it's like a 4-mile round trip, so he's going to be a little bit."
Yeah.
And then they walk into the barn and they have like a 3-minute conversation. Then all of a sudden, James is there, and I was like, "So was it 4 miles, or was it literally like 10 minutes down the road?" So there was a weird time dissonance there. And I still don't know if he did make that round trip in and 4 miles could take, if you're running for someone like that, I don't know, what, half 40 minutes?
Who knows? I
35
mean,
minutes or
also
whatever?
you got to factor the snow in. There's a lot
Yeah.
of other stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, having I don't know. I was like, not enough time has passed for this to have that, like, impact of, "Oh, David's bad," you know? That's how I felt. So, anyway.
Okay.
Joel's
Okay.
torture tactics, that was also in the game. It's also in
Yes.
part 2, although it's not used by Joel in part 2. Um,
Spoilers.
David's line of, "I've struggled with it," and this reminds me of a whole that it's not verbatim, it's close, but it reminds me of something that we hopefully will hear soon, and that's all I can say. Todd's restaurant was the same name as in the game. And, why can't rest tar? It's, like, not letting me fix it. It's not
Restaurant.
Yeah, it was like, "What the fuck?" Oh, and it was just like, "Add to dictionary." I was like, no."
Todd's restaurant.
That's the name of my restaurant. So, yeah, we already talked about the Ellie and Joel reunion
Hmm.
more in depth than, but I don't think I compared it. Whatever. If I compared it to the game, whatever. Hi. Thank you. It's my podcast. Um and that's that for the game spoiler section. So, what was that?
Yeah,
Like 2 minutes?
we did it.
Yeah. The show rating that Andrew don't give a fuck about. I'm giving episode 8 a 9.5.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, yeah it is.
It's good.
But so many people love that you fucking hate that. You're like, where did this come from? This is not a thing. And I'm like, yes, it is since the
It's
start.
not. It wasn't a thing.
It
It
wasn't written
it
as a
just
thing.
appeared in the show notes one day.
Like episode 3.
It
And
doesn't matter. We've established the format by that point.
I still rated episodes 1 and 2. I just didn't have a little section on our notes, and you're like, how dare you?
You didn't invite me to review the shows on episodes 1 and 2. We have it on tape.
Yes, we
Please,
do.
someone roll it back.
Oh my god. So some contact info before I turn the rest of the show over to Andrew. Our Instagram, go follow us. We're not as active as we want to be there, but it's TLOU Podcasts. Our Twitter, go follow us there. We're not as active as we want to be, but we'd love to see you there too. TLOU Podcast. Our YouTube, just go to youtube.com and put in the TLOU Podcast, and we should come right up.
Sure.
Please do not forget about our other episode, Wayfaring Strangers, which is dedicated to reviewing the game one subsection of a chapter at a time in great depth, quite similar to what we do here.
Sure.
That's your thing. Come and hang out with us over there. Quick little reminder that the show started originally, the first 7 or 8 episodes I did with my best friend Barb, but unfortunately she moved to an entirely new country, so Andrew took over from there.
She's not. I mean, it's Canada. I mean, it's barely a new country.
But it's still from California to East Coast Canada. That's an enormous amount of space to move.
But time-wise, we're synced up now.
Yes, we are. But it's still a lot.
I know.
Anyway, so just stick around. A lot of good fun with Barb. A lot of good fun with Andrew when he takes the co-host
When
seat.
I enter the fray.
Yes. We have a merch store. If you go to bonfire.com and search up TLOU podcast, you will find us. We got some merch over there for the last cast, as well as Wayfaring Strangers. And if you like our show, you like what we're talking about, you want to, just represent, we would really appreciate that. By the time our merch shows up, we will probably be done filming the last cast for a little while. But
no.
Yeah. But it'll work out. We have a website, tloupodcast.com, where everything is just aggregated together. And
sure. It's a big old dump truck full of
podcasts and
the
stuff.
Last of Us.
Yeah. It's wonderful. If you would like to follow me everywhere, you can do that at Jaded Vader. If you'd like to follow Andrew everywhere, you can do that at Dark Driving. And lastly, do not forget our giveaway is still ongoing. If you go to Twitter or Instagram, just follow the it's not even rules. It's just follow us and retweet the fucking post. I think that's it.
Is it the pinned post?
Yes, it is the pinned post.
All right, yeah, just follow the rules of the pinned post.
Yeah,
super easy.
It's super easy, and you will win a lot of cool Last of Us merch, and the winner will be announced on a live broadcast on Monday, March 13th. It's coming up quick.
Whoa.
It's coming up quick. 4 days.
Will I even be here?
3 by the time. You better be here. You better be here. I'm not doing that alone.
It's fine.
Anyway.
I'll Skype in. It'll be great. Looks dubiously. Hey.
Hi.
Mari, I'm talking to you right now. Okay? I hope you're happy with yourself. Because I'm looking at the runtime of this episode and we're coming up on 4 hours. What happened? What happened? You asked for this, and now look at us. All that is to say, Mari, and everyone else listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm broken now. I'm completely broken. The night, I'll never actually recover from tonight. But one way you might help me heal, just like Ellie healed Joel, my penicillin would be writing a 5-star review for our podcast. Okay? Actually, you don't have to write anything. You just hit that 5-star button and move on with your day. However, if you want to go the extra mile, like many of our friends did earlier in the episode, take the time to do that. You could write a 10-word review. You can write a 10,000. Well, I actually don't know what the upper limit of review is.
10,000
Maybe if you wanted to write 10,000 words, we might dedicate a whole podcast episode to reading that. Who knows? Regardless, thank you for listening. If you do want to help us out in the easiest and freest way possible, a review is the way to do that. Thanks to everyone who's done it so far, and thank you in the future. Every time I ask, it's like 2 or 3 more people do it. So I will just continue to ask and say, please, 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 my penicillin.
Can you mention coffee real quick? I forgot to do that.
Coffee. I love coffee.
-fi.com/TLOU podcast.
What are we doing at coffee? We're just talking right now. I'm not dropping it in there. Let's just talk.
No,
You don't want, okay. This is a huge if you want to go the extra, say you've already written a review and you're like, how else can I help? You can go to ko-fi.com/Jack, help me out. TLOU podcast.
yes.
ko-fi, that's coffee, just like Joel's favorite beverage, ko-fi.com/TLOU podcast. And you could sub to us there. It's a lot like Patreon, except we get more of a cut. You know, the Patreon thing, they take their pound of flesh. Coffee is a little bit more gentle with their subscriber situation. Anyway, you could subscribe for like $1, $5, whatever works for you. It'd be amazing. And that's just, again, going the extra mile. You could do that. That's all I'll say.
This is how little Andrew knows about coffee. Because our subscriber tiers are
$1,
$5 a month and $20 a month. But you can
$10.
donate whatever you want.
That's what I meant. More donations. If you wanted to donate them, I just say the people that subscribe are more there for the Wayfarer and Strangers, which we encourage you to be a part of as well. And that's great. And we love those people who are doing the monthly subs. Yeah, those people, they're anxiously awaiting our triumphant return to Wayfarer and Strangers after the show is done.
Yes.
Regardless, thank you. Rate and review for free. Coffee for a little bit more if it is financially viable for you. And but no expectations either way. Thanks for hanging. 4 hours. Oh my God.
It'll be cut down.
It will not.
Some of it will.
I will cut nothing.
Great.
Warts and all, this show goes up. It goes up tonight.
Yeah. No.
It goes up tonight.
Now read the outro.
It goes up tonight. All right. Here we go. I never read these in advance. It's always a surprise to me. Here it is. Until we're ridding the world of one last... I can't talk anymore. I can't do it.
You should put that as a blooper. I will.
I'm not cutting anything. I don't know what you're talking. I cut nothing. Until we're ridding the world of one less parasitic growth, and again next time. This is where we leave you to sharpen our cleavers.
Bye, motherfucker.
A perfect dismount. Yeah, got a 9.5 even from the Russian judge. Boom.
I don't know. You could have did it better.
Well, I mean, you say that about this. You say that about every episode of this show. They could have did it better. And here I am on the other side saying, I think it was a masterpiece.
And I'm always like, wait, maybe we should do it over again.
Right. Is it too late for me to give notes? Yeah. Yeah, it just aired on television. It's too late for notes.
Oh my God. Thank you guys. That is episode 8. We have one left. One regular
19-hour episode left. Where we do a retrospective of every episode leading up to and including episode 9. See you there. for our 24-hour potathon.
I got
It's over.
it's
Our
over.
gooses are cooked.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.